On our 30th wedding anniversary, I was diagnosed with terminal stomach cancer. My husband, a high-ranking officer, handed me a divorce agreement. Sujuan, let's get divorced. I'll leave with nothing, and all the money at home will be yours to treat your illness. Why? I asked him hoarsely. My husband replied calmly, you can't die as my wife, otherwise, Wanwan would only be able to become my second wife. Wanwan is proud and will not be able to bear such humiliation. I spat out a mouthful of black blood and closed my eyes in despair. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to my wedding night. 23-year-old Yu Zhou said to me, Shin Sujuan, I can marry you, but I won't touch you. I promised Wanwan that I would save myself for her for the rest of my life. I nodded. Then let's get a divorce. On the wedding night, the noisy banquet had ended and dispersed. Yu Zhou sat in a high-backed chair, looking at me with a serious expression. Shin Sujuan, let's talk. You know, Changwan and I were forced apart by our families. I can't forget her. I can give you a status, and I can give you all my salary, but I can't give you me. I promised Changwan that before she came back to me, I would keep myself pure. Hearing the familiar conversation, I felt a wave of days wash over my mind. I had actually been reborn on the night of my wedding, on the day my husband Yu Zhou came clean with me too. In my previous life, being inexperienced in the world, I was moved by the tragic love between him and Chen Changwan, and agreed without a second thought because Yu Zhou told me that if he didn't find someone to enter a sham marriage, his family would never let Chen Changwan off. At that time, Chen Changwan was a capitalist's daughter sent down to the farm. Yu Zhou, however, was the military third generation, the only male heir in 3 generations of the Yu family, upon whom great hopes were placed. For the sake of Yu Zhou's future, the Yu family absolutely refused to let him marry a capitalist's daughter. To appease Yu Zhou, the Yu family promised that as long as the woman had a good class background, he could marry anyone he wanted, except Chen Changwan. In the end, Yu Zhou chose me because my family had been poor peasants for 3 generations. My class background was good also because I came from the countryside. I was naive and simple, easy to control. But in this life, Yu Zhou, I don't want to be a part of your torturous love story anymore. I looked up and calmly stared at him. I understand. Then, if it's not too much trouble, please go with me to the commune tomorrow to handle the divorce procedures. Yu Zhou looked at me in astonishment. Why? I smiled, revealing deep dimples. Because I was also forced to marry you. There's also someone in my heart, but that person, like your Wanwan, I can't marry him right now. For a moment, I saw an expression on Yu Zhou's face as if he had swallowed a live fly. I sneered inwardly. What? So you're allowed to have a white moonlight in your heart, and I'm not allowed to have a cinnabar mole in mine. 3. Hearing me say that I also had someone in my heart, Yu Zhou tugged at the corner of his mouth, revealing an ugly smile. Is that so? Well, that's fine too. That way, we won't owe each other anything. But let's forget about the divorce. After all, you can't marry him for the time being anyway. I shook my head firmly. No, he has strong self-esteem. I don't want people to say he's the third party who came between our marriage. Yu Zhou's expression grew even uglier, and he was just about to say something. I had already picked up the large floral pattern dowry quilt. I'm afraid he might get jealous later. Tonight, let's sleep in separate rooms. Watching Yu Zhou's utterly stunned expression, I felt immensely satisfied. In this lifetime, you too shall taste the feeling of keeping a lonely vigil, lying awake all night. For when I got up the next day, seeing the cold stove and empty pots in the house, I didn't even make breakfast. Yu Zhou was stunned for a moment, then forced a bitter smile and said, Sujuan, even if it's just for show, we should at least act like a married couple, right? You should at least prepare the 3 daily meals. Otherwise, with a cold stove and empty pots, what kind of home would this look like? Yes, that's exactly what the foolish me from my past life, used to think. In my past life, to cover up the shameful love affair between Yu Zhou and Chen Changwan, I endured the heartache, acting like a dutiful little wife, buying groceries, cooking meals, washing clothes, and mopping the floor every day. I managed the small household of Yu Zhou and me in perfect order. But in reality, after work each day, Yu Zhou and I were like 2 roommates sharing a flat. We would eat our meals in silence, then each retreat to our own rooms. For a full 3 years, Yu Zhou kept his promise to his first love and never once touched me. 3 years later, my father-in-law was hospitalized with liver cancer, and my mother-in-law was also in poor health. Under the pressure of public opinion, I, as his daughter-in-law, had no choice but to quit my job and go home to take care of them. Who would have thought that once I started caring for them, I would end up doing it for 12 years. My father-in-law died after 3 years of battling liver cancer, and shortly after that, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with a tumor. During those years, I stayed with my in-laws in the hospital, taking care of their every need, eating, drinking, and even their most basic bodily functions. I lost more than 30 pounds from exhaustion, so thin that even a gust of wind could have blown me away. But when I finally saw my in-laws off and returned to the military compound, I realized that the little home that had once belonged to Yu Zhou and me had already been taken over by his first love, Chen Chengwan. That evening, I stood at the door and watched Yu Zhou, dressed in a crisp military uniform, open the front passenger door of the Jeep with a gentle expression and tender eyes. Chen Chengwan, dressed in a khaki trench coat and looking stylish, took his hand and stepped gracefully out of the car. Seeing me standing at the door, Yu Zhou panicked for a moment. "Suan, why are you back?" I forced a bitter smile and said, "This is my home, why can't I come back?" Everyone in the courtyard looked over. Chen Chengwan, humiliated and furious, shook off Yu Zhou's hand, covered her face, and ran out crying. Yu Zhou glared at me with a furious expression and shouted uncontrollably, "Shen Suan, don't think that just because you've taken care of my parents all these years and saw them to their final rest, I'll be grateful to you or fall in love with you. I told you on our wedding day that the one I love is Chen Chengwan. You and I are just a couple in name only." 5 That night, neither Yu Zhou nor Chen Chengwan came back. In fact, if he had waited just one more minute, he would have known that this time I came back not to be his wife. I just wanted to take my things with me. By the way, I wanted to tell him that now that our parents-in-law were both gone, no one in this world would ever stand in the way of him and Chen Chengwan being together anymore. I wanted to part on good terms with him and take this opportunity to get our divorce certificate that would allow him and Chen Chengwan, that pair of ill-fated lovers, to be together openly and without restraint. I also wanted to tell him that over the years, though I had resented him, I had never hated him. Even though he made me live in celibacy for 30 years. Still, because of him, I spent 30 years as an army officer's wife and enjoyed 30 years of military spouse benefits. Even before my mother-in-law passed away, she held my hand and said that over the years, the Yu family had wronged me. My mother-in-law said that if I didn't want to stay with Yu Zhou anymore, I should divorce him. She left me 5,000 yuan and a house, so even if we divorced, I wouldn't be left homeless. I had already made up my mind to part ways with him amicably, but somehow, Yu Zhou seemed possessed, convinced that I had taken care of his parents until their end just to use it as moral leverage, to bind him so he could never divorce me. In our past life, we misunderstood each other just like this. For the sake of Chen Chengwan's reputation, he applied for a transfer and took his beloved white moonlight far away to the borderlands. I stayed in our hometown, enduring endless gossip, and in the end, I developed stomach cancer. Even on my deathbed, I was still forced to divorce. 6 As my thoughts returned to the present, I picked up the household register and the marriage certificate I had just obtained the day before yesterday. I urged Yu Zhou again to go with me to get the divorce certificate. Unexpectedly, Yu Zhou, who had repeatedly told me not to harbor any foolish hopes for him, was now dawdling and unwilling to go. I patiently explained, "Don't worry, we'll just quietly get a divorce certificate. During holidays or when your parents visit, I'll still keep my promise and pretend to be a fake couple with you." Yu Zhou irritably interrupted me, "No way, do you think a military marriage can be dissolved just like that? If we divorce, we have to report it to the military. Once the report is submitted, my parents will definitely find out." "Shen Sujuan, are you deliberately trying to ruin Wanwan's life?" I was momentarily speechless. I really hadn't considered that getting a divorce would also require reporting it to the military. Seeing me speechless, Yu Zhou's stern face broke into a faint smile. He reassured me, "Don't worry about your reputation. I've already transferred Wanwan to the military hospital. From now on, both Wanwan and I will stay with the army. You'll be living at home alone." My eyes lit up. "So, can I bring someone to live with me?" Yu Zhou's smiling face suddenly stiffened. You want to bring that man into our home?" I nodded eagerly. "Don't worry, I won't embarrass you. To others, I'll just say he's my brother." Yu Zhou opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. I knew what he meant. He was saying that men and women should keep their distance, and that I shouldn't get too close to other men. But just now, it had clearly been him who said first that he was bringing his beloved first love, Chen Chengwan, to live in the military compound, and now he wouldn't even allow me to bring someone back too. That wasn't just shooting himself in the foot. Seeing how he was so pent up he looked ready to explode, I held back my laughter and deliberately said to him, "If you think bringing someone into the military compound will invite gossip, how about you give me some money, and I rent a place outside for him to live?" Yu Zhou was stunned for a moment, then, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, he blew up instantly. "Shen Sujuan, you actually want to use my money to support some wild man outside?" 7 Seeing you Zhou's exasperated expression. I patiently explained once more. Li Zhongfeng is not some random man, he is the one I love. If it weren't for his family's poor background, which my parents absolutely refused to accept, I would never have agreed to this sham marriage with you. When I said the same words about Chen Chengwan, Yu Zhou thought I was considerate and understanding, but when it came to Li Zhongfeng, Yu Zhou's expression looked as if he had just eaten a pile of shit. I couldn't help but sneer. Inwardly, in my past life, I had also hinted to Yu Zhou that he should keep an appropriate distance from Chen Chengwan. After all, he is still my husband in name, yet he's entangled with his single white moonlight. If this gets out, not only will it look bad for my in-laws' reputation, but it will also negatively impact his future prospects. But back then, what did Yu Zhou say? Shen Sujuan, don't use your dirty, provincial mindset to insult the feelings between me and Wan Wan. Although we admire each other, we have never crossed the line. Wan Wan and I have a pure, revolutionary comrade-in-arms relationship. Now, I returned those exact words to him. Yu Zhou, I already told you, Zhang Feng and I only share a pure revolutionary friendship. Although we admire each other, we have never crossed the line. If you really don't believe me, then let's get a divorce. The current Yu Zhou is not yet the decisive military commander he would become 30 years later, worried that his parents might take action against Chen Chengwan. Yu Zhou simply didn't dare to actually divorce me. Taking a deep breath, Yu Zhou, his face ashen, pulled out over a dozen big unity bills from his coat pocket and threw them at me in a fit of anger. Take this to support your lover and keep him hidden far away. Don't let me see him. With the money in hand, I left the family compound without looking back. The sound of a glass shattering on the floor came from behind. But what does he have to be angry about? After all, it was he himself who proposed that we enter into a sham marriage. Having been reborn, I don't want to waste another lifetime lingering in the Yu family. I want to save the man who, in my previous life, gave me the last bit of warmth after my death. In my past life, Yu Zhou insisted on divorcing me before I died. I knew it was because he didn't want me to be buried in the Yu family ancestral tomb even in death. He wanted to reserve the spot beside him for the woman he truly loved. After I died, my in-laws wouldn't let me in, and I couldn't go back to my parents' home. I almost became a lonely ghost buried in a mass grave. It was Li Zhongfeng, the man I had once given a few wild vegetable steamed buns to in the name of husband and wife. He spent money to buy me a grave plot. Thinking of my past life, when that man personally carved the words "wife of Li Zhongfeng" on the tombstone, my heart felt bitter and sour. Right now, Li Zhongfeng was still locked up in the cowshed because of speculation and profiteering. I spent a little money and merely said my in-laws' names. Within half a day, Li Zhongfeng was out of the cowshed. Brother, my shout completely stunned Li Zhongfeng. Fortunately, he recognized me. Everyone being held there said he was lucky. If I hadn't come today, by tomorrow Li Zhongfeng would have been sent down to a farm. On the way back, Li Zhongfeng glanced at me teasingly. How did I not know I suddenly got a younger sister? My face red. I had no idea how to explain it for a moment. After all, at this point Li Zhongfeng wasn't even considered an acquaintance to me, let alone someone who had bought a grave plot and arranged my burial. Seeing me blushing and saying nothing, Li Zhongfeng thought his joke had gone too far and hurriedly apologized to me. Comrade Shin Sujuan, a great kindness need not be thanked for. From now on, you're my little sister. If anyone dares to bully you, just give a shout. I'll go through fire and water for you, no matter what. I looked up. Really? Then can you pretend to be my partner? 9. I rented a small courtyard for Li Zhongfeng, 3 streets away from the military family compound. In my previous life at this time, I foolishly kept the agreement, washing clothes and cooking for Yu Zhou every day. In the family compound, we played the role of a loving newlywed couple. In this life, I no longer want to gloss over the peace for Yu Zhou and Chen Chengwan. Yu Zhou took the meat, eggs, and milk issued by the army and diligently delivered them to Chen Chengwan to nourish her body. I took the rice, flour, and oil issued by my unit and personally made a pot of Li Zhongfeng's favorite noodles with gravy. Yu Zhou took his salary and ration coupons, and took Chen Chengwan to stroll around the supply and marketing cooperative, watch movies, and dine out. I just took my salary and ration coupons, and took Li Zhongfeng to the scrapyard. Li Zhongfeng's family used to run a pawn shop, so his eye is particularly sharp. He could always pick out quite a few treasures from a huge pile of scrap. At first, Yu Zhou was very happy because I never cared where he went or who he was with. After marrying me, he could still, as before, stay by the side of his white moonlight, Chen Chengwan. But before long, he took the initiative to talk to me. Sujuan, between us, we can't go on like this anymore. Haven't you noticed that our home is becoming less and less like a home? I remained silent. Yu Zhou would never know that in my past life, I truly once considered this place my home. Yu Zhou spoke sweet words, giving his salary to me, but his love to his white moonlight. But in reality, he only gave me his salary for the first month. After that, I never saw a single cent of his wages again. His salary and ration coupons all turned into movie tickets, snowflake cream, dresses, and various fresh candies and pastries for Chin Chungwan. Only I, like a fool, saved every penny of my salary to furnish this home with new furniture, bedding, curtains, and dishes, transforming the originally cold dormitory into a warm little home. I also saved all the meat, sugar, and egg ration coupons issued by the unit. I would wait until Yu Zhou came back on leave to buy meat and eggs, making all sorts of delicious food for him while telling me not to indulge in wishful thinking. Yu Zhou was, at the same time, taking my contributions to this family for granted without a hint of guilt. It's just a pity that the foolish Shen Suchuan from my past life is already dead in this life. I no longer care whether there's a warm, lived-in atmosphere at home, nor do I care anymore whether Yu Zhou will be cold or hungry when he comes home on leave. I moved all the items distributed by my workplace over to Li Zhanfeng's place every day. I would finish my meals there before returning home. Yu Zhou had always assumed that, with me at home, he would at least have a hot meal waiting for him when he returned on leave. Little did he expect that what would greet him was the cold, metallic lock on the front door. Opening the door, the house felt cold and deserted, as if no one had lived there for a long time. The thermos was empty, and the coal stove by the door also seemed long unused. Thinking I had left the family compound, he hurriedly went to ask the neighbor next door. Unexpectedly, the neighbor said, "Your wife, she went to her brother's place. She said you weren't home, and she couldn't finish cooking and eating alone. So she's been making meals at her brother's place and comes back after eating." Yu Zhou, simmering with anger, sat in the house and waited until 8 in the evening before seeing me on the back seat of a bicycle as Li Zhanfeng rode the bike and brought me back. 10 After that day, Yu Zhou seemed like a completely different person. He no longer used being busy with work as an excuse to spend all day at the military base with his white moonlight. He even started acting like other officers in the family compound, bringing home 2 dishes and a bag of steamed buns from the canteen after work. He also bought 200 coal briquettes for the house. Every day after work, he would use the coal stove to reheat the food and steamed buns he brought back. Then, like a devoted husband, he would wait for me to come home from work to eat. If it were the me from my past life, I would have been moved to tears, completely falling into this man's sweet trap. But now, faced with Yu Zhou's deliberate attempts to please me, I just responded with the same cold tone he used in my past life. "Comrade Yu Zhou, don't forget. We are just a nominal, unconsummated fake couple. My heart belongs only to Zhanfeng. Please don't harbor any unrealistic fantasies about me." With a crash, the large, coarse porcelain bowl filled with porridge fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. Yu Zhou was stunned for a moment, then lowered his head and silently fetched a broom and dustpan. He began to clean up the broken porcelain shards and the porridge covered in dust from the floor, bit by bit. Seeing me stubbornly sitting nearby, refusing to eat the food he had brought back from the cafeteria, Yu Zhou let out a bitter laugh. "I'm sorry, I overstepped. I just didn't expect that you really liked that man so much. I thought, since you agreed to a marriage of convenience with me, perhaps you also felt a little something for me. Anyway, what happened today was my fault. I apologize to you. From now on, I won't interfere with you and that man anymore." I looked up, my gaze calm as I watched him. "It's best that you think this way. After all, from the beginning, we were just a fake couple by agreement. However, if it really bothers you to see me, I can move to Brother Zhanfeng's place. We can just tell others that you're not home and I'm scared to live here alone." "No, don't move there." Yu Zhou suddenly stood up, agitated. "Don't move. I'll go back to stay at the barracks tonight. You can have this place." Yu Zhou lowered his head, his eyes fixed intently on my face, as if trying to see even a hint of reluctance. However, he found that at this moment, there wasn't the slightest trace of reluctance on my face. There was even some relief and happiness. At this moment, he discovered with immense frustration his wife in name, it seemed, truly did not like him at all. 11 That evening, Yu Zhou left me 50 yuan, along with 2 jean of meat coupons, 1 jean of sugar coupons, and several cloth coupons. Then, he returned to the military unit overnight. Seeing that Yu Zhou didn't even spend the night at home during his leave, the neighbors on both sides looked at me with expressions of mockery and sympathy. Sister Liu, who lived next door to us, kindly reminded me, "Suchuan, your deputy battalion commander Yu is so handsome, has a promising future, and comes from a good family. There are countless women out there who have their eyes on him. You must keep a close eye on him. It's best to take advantage of your youth and quickly have a son for him, so you won't be left crying when some vixen from outside seduces him away." I smiled and explained that Yu Zhou really did go to work overtime at his unit, not out to fool around with other women. Sister Liu clearly didn't believe it, The way she looked at me was as if she were looking at a complete fool. From that day on, Yujo indeed kept his promise and never came back. However, every month he would send me half of his salary and various ration coupons through someone. I accepted them all without refusal. This was what he owed me from his past life anyway. In the blink of an eye, the time arrived for my father-in-law from my previous life to be hospitalized with liver cancer. After receiving the telegram, Yujo immediately drove over to pick me up. However, this time, he couldn't bring himself to demand, as he had in his previous life, that I sell my job and return to our hometown to take care of his parents. As a matter of course, Yujo and I stayed in our hometown for 3 days. When it was time to leave, Yujo took out a bankbook and asked his mother to hire a caregiver for his father. My mother-in-law glanced at me, her eyes seeming somewhat dissatisfied, and tentatively asked, "Your father is so ill, can't either of you stay?" The implication in my mother-in-law's words was obvious. Yujo is now a deputy battalion commander, a critical time for earning merits and getting promoted, so of course he can't take a long leave to come back and care for his father. She was hinting that I should voluntarily offer to resign or take unpaid leave to come back and take care of my father-in-law. 12. I glanced at Yujo. He somewhat guiltily turned his head away, avoiding my gaze. In my previous life, I was exactly like this, morally coerced by my in-laws' tears and the surrounding gossip, ultimately trapped in the Yu family's old house, living as a grass widow for a full 12 years. In this life, I won't be so foolishly manipulated anymore. After all, I'm not the Yu family's real daughter-in-law. If the in-laws want their daughter-in-law to come back and serve them, they should go find Chin Chungwan mother-in-law. Being a cultured person, couldn't act like a wicked mother-in-law, but she kept hinting at me with her eyes. I pretended not to notice and said firmly, "I've already made up my mind. I'm willing to sacrifice my own little family for the greater good and fight for the socialist cause all my life. I can't just abandon my work and come back to care for the elderly. However, as a daughter-in-law, I should still do my filial duty." So I told my mother-in-law that from now on, I didn't want a single cent of Yujo's salary or any of the coupons issued by his unit. He should send everything back and keep it to hire a caregiver for my father-in-law and buy medicine and pay for treatment. I did as I said. Starting the second month, I no longer took the money or coupons Yujo had someone bring back for me. It's just that with no half of his salary to prop her up, Chin Chungwan, the capitalist's daughter accustomed to a life of luxury, would likely not live as comfortably as before. 13. In this life, I didn't work like an ox or a horse for the Yu family. Nor did I serve my in-laws. I had more time to go treasure hunting with Li Zhanfeng in all kinds of places. We took money and food ration coupons to some remote commune recycling stations. We spent very little money and managed to find many out-of-print books, damaged antiques and paintings, as well as cultural relics that people had been using as broken pots for planting vegetables. We also used the money we earned to rescue many antique and ancient book restoration masters who were still undergoing reform in the cowsheds. With their help, we created many convincing counterfeit cultural relics. The fakes were sold at high prices to foreigners. The genuine ones were all kept within the country. We did our best, in that chaotic era, to carefully protect the cultural relics that belonged to our nation. We tried our hardest to ensure that decades later, China would have fewer regrets about cultural relics that cannot return home. When things got busy, I simply stayed over at Li Zhanfeng's place. It wasn't until I hadn't gone home for several days in a row that Yujo suddenly came looking for me. 14. He saw Li Zhanfeng and me with our heads together, carefully going through a damaged rare copy. Yujo walked in with a dark face, gritting his teeth as he questioned me. "Shin Sujuan, is this what you call being clean and proper with him? Never crossing the line. I just came over from the family quarters. They said you haven't been home for several days. Why are you with him?" I impatiently cut off his speculation. "Comrade Yujo, regardless of what relationship I have with Comrade Li Zhanfeng, it seems to have nothing to do with you, right? Don't forget, between us, we are only a nominal, fake couple." Yujo gritted his teeth and growled in a low voice, "A fake couple is still a couple. You, being so unfaithful, alone with another man, staying out all night, how do you think others will see me?" I stood up, looking at him without backing down. "Only now do you realize that when a man and a woman are alone together, staying out all night, people who see it will gossip? Then when you abandoned your newlywed wife to stroll under the moonlight with your Wan, go to the movies, shop at the department store, and row boats in the park together, why didn't you think about how others would see me?" Yujo, you care so much about whether I've cuckolded you. Could it be that you've shifted your affections and fallen for me? 15. My words struck Yujo's face like a heavy hammer. Instantly, his expression turned extremely unpleasant. He wanted to say that he deeply loved Chin Chungwan and could never possibly shift his affections to fall in love with another woman. However, Shin Sujuan was his lawfully wedded wife. Isn't it only natural for a husband to develop feelings for his own wife, or perhaps, what he felt for Shin Sujuan wasn't actually love. It was just because she was his wife in name, and so, unconsciously, he had developed some strange sense of possessiveness towards her, right, no matter what. Shin Sujuan was his lawfully wedded wife, and military marriages are protected by law. Taking a deep breath, Yu Zhou forced a smile and said to me, Sujuan, I was wrong about what happened before. I didn't consider your feelings and reputation. Come back with me first. I promise I'll try to go out alone with Wanwan less often in the future. I'll also give you the respect you deserve. From now on, let's continue living together like before. Okay. 16. Looking at Yu Zhou's pleading eyes, a nearly absurd thought suddenly struck me. Could it be that he has really shifted his affection and fallen for me? Just then, Li Zhongfeng spoke up. Comrade Yu Zhou, I'm afraid that won't be possible. As you know, Sujuan and I love each other. Deep down, I don't want to see Sujuan living with another man. As a man, I think you should be able to understand how I feel, right? Yu Zhou suddenly clenched his fists, glaring sharply at Li Zhongfeng. He said coldly, Comrade Li Zhongfeng, no matter what relationship you and Sujuan once had, please remember this, as long as Sujuan and I have not officially filed for divorce, she, Shin Sujuan, is my lawful wife. Li Zhongfeng chuckled lightly. Then I'll wait for the day you and Sujuan get divorced. Yu Zhou stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The next day, an urgent telegram arrived from our hometown. My father-in-law had passed away in the hospital after failed resuscitation efforts. Yu Zhou drove over to pick me up to return for the funeral. All the way there, I felt dazed and absent-minded. I never expected that in this life, without my meticulous care, my father-in-law's advanced liver cancer wouldn't even make it half a year before taking him away like this. At the funeral hall, watching my mother-in-law faint from crying, I sighed and pulled Yu Zhou aside. I think mother's health doesn't seem very good. If you have time, you should take her to the hospital for a thorough checkup. Even though, in both of my lives, my mother-in-law had always harbored a bit of calculation toward me. At the very least, before she passed away in my previous life, she left me 5,000 yuan and a house in the provincial capital. Just for that alone, in this life, I still hoped the tumor in her body could be discovered earlier. Maybe there would still be a chance of a cure, but I never expected that when my father-in-law was buried, my mother-in-law would actually slap me across the face in front of relatives from both families. I was completely stunned by the slap. 17. In front of my father-in-law's tombstone, my mother-in-law glared at me with bloodshot eyes, as if I were the one who had caused his death. Shin Sujuan, you are not worthy to be the daughter-in-law of our Yu family. When your father-in-law was hospitalized with cancer, you, as his daughter-in-law, actually went back to work as if nothing had happened. How could our Yu family have married such an unfilial daughter-in-law? If it weren't for you, Yu Zhou's father wouldn't have passed away so soon. Hearing my mother-in-law's unreasonable accusations and curses, I couldn't help but laugh in anger. As you said, I am only the daughter-in-law of the Yu family. Yu Zhou is the biological son of his father. He wouldn't even come back to take care of his father-in-law, so why should I, as his daughter-in-law, have to take care of his dad? The mother-in-law lashed out sharply, because you're Yu Zhou's wife. Yu Zhou is doing important work in the army. As a military wife, you should be filial to his parents for him and hold down the home front for him. I really didn't want to trade insults with my mother-in-law, so I could only turn to look at Yu Zhou. At this point, there's no point hiding it anymore. Should you tell your mother, or should I? Yu Zhou looked up blankly, and when he caught the meaning behind my words, fear instantly filled his eyes. Suwan, please, stop talking. Okay. The mother-in-law reached out and pulled him aside, glaring at me. Say it, let her say it. I'd like to hear what reason she has for not even honoring her husband's parents. With his mother blocking him, Yu Zhou could only beg me desperately with his eyes. Suwan, don't say it. Please, Yu Zhou, it's too late. Between you and me, everything has been completely settled. Each time you chose to let me take the blame, each time you chose to let me suffer the grievances, I looked at my mother-in-law and, under Yu Zhou's fearful and desperate gaze, told her everything in detail, about our fake marriage and how I, as his wife, covered for Yu Zhou's secret meetings with Chen Chengwan. You all. My mother-in-law's eyes widened, and she couldn't catch her breath. With a thud, she fainted in front of her father-in-law's tombstone. 18. After the funeral for my father-in-law ended, despite Yu Zhou's pleas for me to stay, I insisted on buying the earliest train ticket and left the city. As I was leaving, Yu Zhou asked me with a bitter smile, can't you really stay, at least until after the first 7 days of mourning? I shook my head. I'm sorry, but after all, we're in a fake marriage. Me observing mourning for your father would be improper and unjustifiable. I think, at a time like this, You should have the person you truly want to marry come instead, but how could Chen Changwan possibly come at a time like this in my past life? She didn't want to bear the brunt of her in-laws' anger, nor did she want to take on the responsibility of supporting them, so she had Yu Zhou, in the name of being husband and wife, keep me trapped by my in-laws' side. It wasn't until my in-laws passed away, free from those two burdens, that Chen Changwan finally showed her true colors, forcing Yu Zhou to divorce me and make way for her. In this life, with my father-in-law dying so early and my mother-in-law's anger still simmering, Chen Changwan would be even more afraid to come and risk bad luck. I heard that the day after news of my father-in-law's death arrived, Chen Changwan applied for a medical aid mission at the border. Military orders are as unyielding as a mountain. She cannot return for at least 2 years. After 2 years, time will have washed everything away. She will return with honors. Still the purest white moonlight in Yu Zhou's heart. This woman's calculations are far too clever. It's just a pity that in this life, I have already seen through everything and no longer wish to be a mere bead on her and Yu Zhou's abacus of love. After making everything clear, I submitted a divorce application to the organization, but for some reason, Yu Zhou has been unwilling to sign it. 19. I moved out of the military family housing compound. However, Yu Zhou was right. Before we had officially divorced, living together, Li Zhanfeng and I would benefit neither him nor me, so I moved into the unit dormitory. In my spare time, I began sorting through some of the damaged scrolls I had collected from the scrap station. I planned to publish a book so that the whole world would know these brilliant cultural treasures belong to our Huaxia nation. Decades later, if some shameless country were to rush to have them listed as its own heritage and claim that these cultures belong to their nation, then this book would be ironclad proof, slapped right in their faces and exposing them with a resounding embarrassment. I hadn't expected that while I was secluded at home writing my book, a storm was already brewing over in the family compound. 20. After learning that Yu Zhou and I were in a fake marriage, my mother-in-law found out where Chen Changwan was providing aid. She actually used my father-in-law's connections to go straight to the front lines and brought Chen Changwan back. In the family compound, Chen Changwan was trembling as she hid behind Yu Zhou. Her delicate, petite face was covered with bright red slap marks. My mother-in-law glared at Yu Zhou and said coldly, "If you still acknowledge me as your mother, then today, right here, in front of everyone, cut all ties with this woman." Yu Zhou shook his head in pain. "Mom, I know you're heartbroken since Dad passed away, but this matter has absolutely nothing to do with Wan Wan. How can you take your anger out on her?" My mother-in-law roared. "How is it not related? If it weren't for her, you and Sujuan would have long been a real married couple. I know Sujuan's character well. If she had truly been our Yu family's daughter-in-law, when your father was diagnosed with cancer, she would have quit her job and come back to take care of him wholeheartedly. Your father wouldn't have passed away so early. It's all because of that vixen. She destroyed your family with Sujuan and even caused your father's death. How can you still want to protect her?" Mother-in-law's accusations, word by word, forced Yu Zhou and Chen Changwan to retreat step by step, their faces turning pale. In this era, punishment for improper relationships between men and women is particularly severe. Moreover, both Yu Zhou and Chen Changwan are military personnel. If it were confirmed that they had engaged in an improper relationship, not only would promotions be out of the question, but they might even be immediately discharged from the army. Yu Zhou pleaded with his mother-in-law to stop talking. Chen Changwan was also frightened and cried, promising to keep her distance from Yu Zhou in the future and never again disrupt their marital relationship. Unfortunately, it was all too late. 21. The military family compound housed the cadres and their families from the same regiment. Yu Zhou was not the one with the highest rank among them. After my mother-in-law caused a huge scene in the family compound, Yu Zhou and Chen Changwan were suspended from their duties and placed under investigation by the organization. The very next day, the investigation team also came to our unit, found me, and questioned me about the relationship between my husband and Chen Changwan. I did not kick them while they were down. I simply told the truth. Yu Zhou and I are indeed a nominal, unconsummated couple. On our wedding night, he told me he had someone in his heart, vowed to remain chaste for that person, and therefore could only be a nominal husband to me. As for whether his beloved is Chen Changwan, and whether the two of them have ever done anything to betray their families, I don't know about that, although I didn't kick them while they were down. Unfortunately, Yu Zhou and Chen Changwan had been far too conspicuous in the military before. The investigation team only needed to ask around a little to gather a substantial amount of evidence. They strolled through parks together, dined at state-run restaurants together, and watched movies together. What's more, after getting married, Yu Zhou paid no attention to me, his wife, yet handed over his entire monthly salary and all his ration coupons to Chen Changwan. The evidence was ironclad. Soon after, both Yu Zhou and Chen Chongwan were discharged from the military. The housing in the family compound was also reclaimed by the military. The divorce application I submitted to the military was also quickly approved. On the day of the divorce, Yu Zhou, unshaven and wearing a crumpled army green shirt, looked at me with a remorseful expression. Sujuan, between us, in the future, will there still be a chance to start over? I smiled. Between you and me, it never even began, so how could there be a future? 22. It was already 5 years later when I saw Yu Zhou again. After my new book was published, it was a great success, and I received an invitation from the Writers Association in my hometown to return and hold a symposium. As I entered the venue, I suddenly spotted a familiar figure at the entrance. Yu Zhou, why is he working as a security guard here? Yu Zhou seemed to have noticed me too, but he quickly turned away, pretending not to have seen me. I didn't go up to acknowledge him. Sometimes pretending not to know someone is also part of an adult's dignity. However, after the symposium, during the dinner, my ex-husband was inevitably brought up. I heard that after he was discharged from the military back then, his mother had already pulled some strings, planning to send him to gain experience at the grassroots level. But just at that moment, Yu Zhou's white moonlight, unable to endure the hardships of grassroots work, actually ran off with a nouveau riche. Yu Zhou was deeply devastated and refused to stay at the grassroots level any longer. Despite his mother-in-law's objections, he sold off more than half of the family assets to raise enough capital. Planning to venture into business, he aimed to achieve success and fame, making that wretched Chen Chongwan regret her actions. Unfortunately, Yu Zhou had no talent for business at all. In less than a year, he lost all his capital. Just then, as in his previous life, his mother-in-law was diagnosed with a tumor. Yu Zhou sold off the last remaining assets of the Yu family, but still couldn't save his mother-in-law's life. After his mother-in-law passed away, the family's only house was also reclaimed by her former employer. With nowhere to go, Yu Zhou had to turn to an old comrade in arms, who helped him find a job as a security guard. At least, his food and accommodation problems were solved. I heard that Chen Chongwan followed that nouveau riche to the south, thinking she was going to live a life of luxury. Little did she know, he had already married a wife there long ago. It was just because his wife couldn't bear children that he tricked her into going back to have a son for him. Chen Chongwan was proud and ambitious. How could she be willing to bear a son for someone else? Relying on her familiarity with pharmaceuticals, she secretly concocted a drug and poisoned the nouveau riche's original wife. Just when she thought she could successfully take her place, the original wife's brothers came knocking. Without distinguishing right from wrong or having any evidence, they directly tied Chen Chongwan up, bound her with stones, stuffed her into a sack, and threw her into the sea. In those days, there were many illegal border crossers along the coast. Every day, several bodies would wash ashore, and the police couldn't even investigate them all. Moreover, Chen Chongwan was only missing, and no one helped her report it to the police. It wasn't until a year later, when one of the original wife's brothers was arrested for a crime, that this old case was brought to light. However, because too much time had passed, Chen Chongwan's body could no longer be found. But none of this has anything to do with me anymore. Li Zhongfeng has collected many precious cultural and ancient books for me again. It's time to start preparing my second book. Fortunately, in recent years, Li Zhongfeng has picked up his family's traditional business again and opened a pawn shop. With him at home taking care of the child, I can also focus on preparing my new book with peace of mind. And that's all for the first story. Don't go away, the next story is even more exciting. In 1987, Lu Shiguang died while working away from home. His body was never found. He only sent a message to set me free. The Lu family said I was unlucky, broke my leg, and kicked me out with nothing. To avoid tarnishing my maiden family's reputation and to find Lu Shiguang's body for my own peace of mind, I went out alone to work and search for him. Later, I saw Lu Shiguang living with another woman. Their child could already call them mom and dad. That's when I realized Lu Shiguang had faked his death to get a divorce. I rushed out wanting to kill that man and woman, but the next moment, because my legs were inconvenient and I couldn't dodge in time, I was hit and killed by a truck. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the moment when the news of Lu Shiguang's death was brought to me. I clenched my fists. In this life, I'll make you all cry for me. What happened to my son? Explain clearly. My mother-in-law shouted at the top of her lungs, afraid that people in the yard wouldn't know. It attracted many people to gather and watch the commotion. Aunt Lu, I really don't know what happened to Shiguang. I only know he's dead, and his body wasn't even found. When I was packing his luggage, I saw a letter in the bundle. I came to deliver Shiguang's letter. I don't know anything else. Ma Shengjin, who worked with Lu Shiguang, finished speaking, stuffed the letter into my hand, and ran off. He was afraid I'd stop him and question him further. I knew that Ma Shengjin was nothing more Then an actor hired by Lu Shiguang to deliver the letter. He wasn't a professional, and he couldn't act well in this play of Biting the Hand That Fed Him, staged by the Lu family. If you ask who was good at acting, you had to look to the in-laws. Sure enough, the mother-in-law wailed loudly, "Oh no, this is terrible, my son, my Guang, he's my only son. Without my son, what am I supposed to do? God, open your eyes and look. Why is it that the one who should die doesn't, and the one who shouldn't die does? Ah 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 ah." My mother-in-law plopped down on the ground, wailing and beating her chest as if her life were over. While crying, she shot me a sidelong glance, implying that I was the one to blame. It was the same in my previous life. On the day we received the news of Lu Shiguang's death, my father-in-law and mother-in-law fainted from crying several times, and no one could console them. At the time, I still believed that my mother-in-law and father-in-law were genuinely heartbroken. Because Lu Shiguang had 3 older sisters, he was the only son in the family. Losing Lu Shiguang was like the sky falling for the old couple. So when they cursed me, calling me a jinx who had brought death upon their only son, I endured it. My mother-in-law hit my leg with a shovel, telling me to die, and I still endured it because I understand the feeling of losing a loved one. They lost their son, and I lost a good man who didn't mind that I couldn't bear children like them. I lost the support for the rest of my life. They forced me to divorce Lu Shiguang, drove me out of the Lu family. I dragged my crippled leg to work, searching for Lu Shiguang's body. Once I found Lu Shiguang's body, I could face my own conscience, die with a clear conscience, and owe nothing to the Lu family. But when I really died, I finally understood that the Lu family had been scheming against me from the very beginning, all because Lu Shiguang had found another woman and even had a child. As someone who can't bear children, I've worked for their family all these years. They can't just kick me out without a reason. All their scheming was just to make me leave with nothing. At this moment, I feel I must fight fire with fire. The crowd of onlookers grew larger. My mother-in-law was waiting for this moment, and so was I. Before my mother-in-law could even start blaming me, I plopped down on the ground and began wailing. "Oh, my life is so bitter. My man is just gone. I don't even have a child to show for it. The fortune teller said he was bad luck for me, and I didn't believe it back then. I married him because he said he'd treat me well. I married him, who knew the fortune teller was spot on. He really was bad luck for me, leaving me with no one to rely on. He always said he'd go out to work and earn money for me to spend, to support his parents, but he never brought back a single penny all year. Instead, I had to work and give him money, and even when I did, it was never enough. In the forum, it's fine if people are okay, but this person just vanished without a trace, alive but unseen, dead but unfound. What kind of fate is this for me? Heaven above, oh heavens, you're unfair. Those with dirty consciences, the deceivers, the ones who deserve to die don't die, while those who shouldn't die, how did they end up dead? I cried my heart out, exposing all of Lu Shiguang's deeds over the years to everyone. If I hadn't spoken up, everyone would still be fooled by the illusion of Lu Shiguang's filial piety and money-making that the old lady had fabricated. I also turned around the words my mother-in-law wanted to use to slander me for bringing misfortune to Lu Shiguang, and I cursed with genuine sincerity. Lu Shiguang deserved to die, but he didn't. In my previous life, I was a good person, yet I died. Fortunately, heaven opened its eyes, and I was reborn. Then I must make good use of this opportunity. The people around immediately pointed and whispered, "I always said there are plenty of people going out to work, so how come only Shiguang makes money?" Turns out he's also someone who didn't earn any money and has to rely on his wife to support him. Exactly, Shiguang's wife is frugal and thrifty, unwilling to buy even a piece of cloth. What a filial daughter-in-law she is. But it's just her fate that's unfortunate. In my opinion, the Lu family is destined not to have a son. Do you remember they had 4 daughters, kept 3, gave 1 away, and then donated money at the Guanyin temple before finally giving birth to Shiguang? How could we forget? No wonder the fortune teller said the Lu family's daughter-in-law has a bitter fate. It's indeed bitter. The mother-in-law was displeased upon hearing this. She got up from the ground and shouted at the gossiping people, "All of you shut up. What? It was Su Yeshu who jinxed my son to death. Su Yeshu is the one who cursed my son. My son was perfectly fine. Su Yeshu, you jinx. You cursed my son to death and now you're spreading rumors. I'll beat you to death," my mother-in-law said, her eyes darting around, and my father-in-law handed her a nearby shovel. My mother-in-law grabbed it and charged at me. I remember this shovel. In my past life, it was this very shovel that broke my leg, leaving me to endure endless pain whenever it was windy or rainy. I shouted to the crowd, "Murder, murder. The Lu family is trying to silence me." I raised my voice loudly because I saw the neighbor's car parked at the gate. This car belonged to a relative of the neighbor's aunt. Her relative was an officer with some authority. Today, I'm going to use this officer to reclaim what's rightfully mine. After shouting, I wasn't about to let my mother-in-law actually hit me, so I ran and dodged a few shovelfuls from her. My mother-in-law was so angry she couldn't straighten her back, pointing at me and cursing, "You dare run, you jinxed my son to death, and you're nothing but a hen that can't lay eggs. What use does our Lou family have for you? I'll beat you to death today to bury you with my son." My mother-in-law was full of vigor, gnashing her teeth in rage. She wasn't grieving over her son's death, she was only fixated on making me join him in the grave. The onlookers watched the commotion and tried to dissuade her. "Oh, Mrs. Lou, why are you hitting her? Guang is already dead, you still need to rely on your daughter-in-law for filial piety and support, you know." "Exactly. The dead can't come back to life, but the living must go on living, right? Just take it easy. What's meant to be will come, and what isn't meant to be shouldn't be forced. Don't force what isn't meant to be." "Shut up, all of you. What does my family matter have to do with you? You're all here spouting sarcastic remarks. You still have sons, don't you? Your sons won't die, right? You'd be happy if they died." The mother-in-law's words really stirred up a hornet's nest. No one wants to hear such ominous talk, so several aunts and older women surrounded the mother-in-law to argue. "Lou's wife, watch your mouth. Your son probably died because you're always out there bad-mouthing people. That's right, you sold 4 daughters to spend money on your son, and you still couldn't keep him. Who knows if it's because you've done too much evil?" "Exactly, who knows if it's because you've accumulated too much sin." The mother-in-law stood with her hands on her hips, facing off against the crowd, and said, "You're talking nonsense. When did I ever sell my daughter? She was like a vicious cat whose tail had been stepped on. How can you say that? Everyone, tell me, isn't it true? Didn't the Lou family send one away? They took $320 as a nutrition fee, and what about the other 3 daughters? What's the difference between them and being sold off?" Each daughter's bride price was $200, and not a single penny was allowed to be taken away. When it's time for working in the fields, harvesting wheat, or picking corn, they make the daughters and sons-in-law come, and they don't even provide food. The grandchildren eat chaff while the sons eat grain. Do you think everyone else is blind and can't see what you've done? The mother-in-law's face flushed red, and she spat out a few words through gritted teeth. "You're slandering me." The mother-in-law couldn't hold her own against so many voices and gradually lost the upper hand, leaving her no time to chase after me. I seized the chance to run out and stop the man who had just gotten out of the car. "Comrade, my mother-in-law is trying to kill me. Please save me. Help me call the police." Zhang Zeki glanced at the guard beside him. The guard in military uniform immediately stepped forward and shouted, "Everyone, quiet. If anyone has a grievance, you can speak to our division commander Zhang. He will see that justice is done." Upon hearing this, the crowd immediately fell silent. They all looked at Zhang Zeki and at me standing beside him. I seized the opportunity to ask him, "Comrade division commander, can you truly serve the people?" Zhang Zeki glanced at me, his gaze sharp, as if trying to see through my very soul. This was a gaze unlike any I had seen from a man before, carrying a faint, hidden aura of violence that made my scalp tingle for a moment. "You also heard my guard say I'm a division commander. If you have a grievance, I can speak to your bureau chief for you." Hearing this, I immediately perked up. How could my mother-in-law and father-in-law possibly let me speak? They rushed over. My father-in-law stepped forward, smiling at Zhang Zeki, and said, "Isn't this division commander Zhang? It's been a long time since you've been back. Since your wife passed away, you haven't come to see your cousin aunt. What brings you back today?" Zhang Zeki's marriage was arranged by this cousin aunt of his. When I married into the family, I heard that Zhang Zeki's wife had already passed away, and he hadn't returned for several years. He hadn't come back. That is to say, the person from my previous life has returned today, which is why I decided to make use of it, the father-in-law said, taking a cigarette case out of his pocket and offering Zhang Zeki a cigarette. Zhang Zeki, however, blocked the cigarette with his hand. He didn't smile either, looking somewhat serious as he said, "Uncle Lou, I won't smoke. We have discipline. We don't take a single needle or thread from the people. You wouldn't want me to violate discipline, would you?" These words were calm yet powerful. The father-in-law immediately put away the cigarette case, waving his hand awkwardly with an embarrassed smile. "Of course not, of course not, Division Commander Zhang. I'm sorry to have embarrassed you. Our family has private matters today, so I won't keep you for tea. You should hurry over to your aunt's house and take a look." Zhang Zeki glanced at me, noticing that I seemed hesitant to speak, and then said, "I'm not in a hurry either. My aunt happens to be out, so I'll stay with you for get to the bottom of this case. Orderly, go and invite the chief of this police precinct here. The orderly answered yes and drove away. The old woman got scared and reached out to tug at the old man's sleeve. The old man shook her off and greeted Jean Zeki with a smile. How could we trouble you with your time? Since you've finally come back, you must have things to do. Our family's matters are all trivial, so you don't need to listen to my daughter-in-law's nonsense. I stepped forward, hands on my hips, and said, no way, Division Commander Zhang already said he'd stand up for us. We might as well tell him what happened. Dad, haven't we been unable to find Shiguang's body? If someone dies and their body can't be found, they can't be laid to rest, and they're liable to turn into a vengeful ghost. We must ask Division Commander Zhang to help us find Shiguang's body. The old woman shot me several glares and gritted her teeth. This is a minor matter. How can we dare trouble the division commander? Come home with me right now, otherwise, you'll be sorry. I ignored my mother-in-law and looked at Zhang Zeki, asking, Division Commander Zhang, you are a soldier of the people, so you will surely uphold justice for the people, right? We only want fairness today. If Shiguang dies without receiving justice, he will surely rest in peace. My in-laws still insisted that Zhang Zeki should not interfere in the Liu family's affairs. Division Commander Zhang is busy. Don't make unreasonable demands. Zhang Zeki said with a half-smile, I'm not busy today either. Since she said I'm a soldier of the people, how can I ignore the affairs of my fellow villagers? My aunt lives in this area. After such an incident, she must be feeling very upset. Uncle Liu, rest assured, I will help you seek justice for Shiguang. We will get justice for him. Parents-in-law, their faces looked as if they had eaten a dead rat, and I secretly felt pleased seeing that Zhang Zeki intended to intervene. The onlookers guessed it was for the sake of a good reputation. They chimed in, Division Commander Zhang is so kind-hearted, taking the initiative to stand up for your Liu family. Shouldn't you thank Division Commander Zhang? Exactly, Division Commander Zhang is a truly upright official. You're so lucky that Division Commander Zhang happened to return. Hurry up and thank Division Commander Zhang, the father-in-law said stiffly. Thank you. Division Commander Zhang, don't mention it, it's my duty. Parents-in-law, I let Zhang Zeki into the house, and immediately a crowd gathered outside the door. Impossible to shoo away. I took out the letter from earlier and handed it to Zhang Zeki, saying, Division Commander Zhang, this is Liu Shiguang's letter. Ma Shangjin said it was his final words. I don't understand it either. Could you please take a look? My parents-in-law turned pale with fright. They wanted to snatch the letter back but didn't have the nerve, so they could only glare at me. I said with great grievance, Mom, Dad, why are you glaring at me? I'm only trying to get justice for Shiguang. If we don't let Division Commander Zhang see it, when will we ever find Shiguang's body ourselves to give him a proper burial? Finally, my mother-in-law couldn't take it anymore and hissed in a low voice, You just want Shiguang to be dead, don't you? I said very innocently, Mom, you're overthinking it. Shiguang is my husband. He doesn't even mind that I can't have children. How could I possibly want to die? Besides, isn't he already dead? How can you say I wanted him dead? Mom, that's slander. That's attacking me at the heart. Mother-in-law, Zhang Zeki glanced at me, a hint of amusement flashing in his eyes. Me, what's so funny about that? Did he see through my act? No way. Right, of course. I do genuinely want Liu Shiguang dead now, to avenge the injustice of being killed in my previous life. You. My mother-in-law raised her hand to hit me, but Zhang Zeki slapped the table. Her hand trembled, and she quickly withdrew it, shrinking to the side. The room instantly fell so quiet you could hear a pin drop. My father-in-law reluctantly sat down and had my mother-in-law pour tea for them. Division Commander Zhang, you've read the letter. What did Shiguang say? Zhang Zeki said with a strange expression, You should read the letter first. We'll talk after you've finished. The letter was handed to me. I only glanced at it roughly, gritted my teeth hard, and suppressed the hatred in my eyes. In my previous life, I held this letter in my hands for several years. I read it every day, memorized it by heart, and could recite it without a single punctuation mark out of place. I'd been reflecting on why Liu Shiguang wrote this letter. Could it be that he had the ability to foresee the future, knowing that he wouldn't be around much longer, and was afraid that after his death, my in-laws would make things difficult for me, so he left a suicide note to divorce me? It wasn't until I saw him with his mistress that I understood. Liu Shiguang had long since changed his heart. His kindness toward me was merely an attempt to use me. He wasn't afraid of my in-laws making things difficult for me. He simply wanted to freeload a marriage. My in-laws clearly already knew the contents of the letter. Watching it unfold with calm expressions, my mother-in-law looked at the letter, stealing her emotions, and finally squeezed out a few tears, saying, Oh, that Damned soul, Shiguang was a poor, unfortunate child, his father and I didn't have many connections, so we could only let him go out and struggle on his own. Commander Zhang, what does a person strive for in this life? Isn't it just, is there a reason? Perhaps Su Yesha can't have children. Shiguang was suffering in his heart and could only go out to vent. I suspect this is what led to the accident. Shiguang must have held resentment in his heart when he left this letter before his death. I ask you today to make the decision and grant Shiguang a divorce from Su Yeshu. As soon as these words were spoken, they aligned perfectly with my intentions. Zhang Zeki looked at me and asked, Comrade Su, what are your thoughts? I bit my lip, my eyes reddening, and said, Division Commander Zhang, Shiguang treated me very well while he was alive. I vowed to stay by his side for a lifetime. Now he has died under unclear circumstances. And someone wants to dismiss me with just a letter. What if it's a scheme by the murderer? How can I accept this? This also belittles my feelings for Shiguang. A divorce is possible, but I must see Shiguang's body. I want to mourn at his graveside as his widow for 3 full years before divorcing. Provided that Lu Shiguang's body can be found. The in-laws panicked. Of course, they couldn't find Lu Shiguang's body without Zhang Zeki. They could still find someone to help me and Lu Shiguang get a divorce certificate without issuing a death certificate, but now, without a death certificate to prove he's dead, I won't divorce, and I'll have a share of the family's assets. I want to make Lu Shiguang's life and death a disgusting affair. The in-laws wanted to speak but didn't dare, so they could only look at Zhang Zeki, hoping he would find it troublesome and refuse my request. Someone in the crowd said, the Lu family's daughter-in-law is capable and kind-hearted. How did she end up with a short-lived one? But she's truly righteous. Even though Shiguang has passed away, she still has to observe the 3-year mourning period. Division Commander Zhang must help find Shiguang's body, otherwise it would truly chill people's hearts. That's right, that's right. What does it matter if she has no children? Whoever ends up with the Lu family's daughter-in-law, isn't it just like gaining an extra daughter? The in-laws' expressions grew increasingly unpleasant until the police chief arrived. He warmly shook Zhang Zeki's hand. Ah, Division Commander Zhang. What a pleasure to meet you. I've long heard that a distinguished figure has emerged in our area. I've been wanting to pay you a visit, but unfortunately, I never had the chance. The chief certainly knew how to seize an opportunity. Unfortunately, I wasn't going to let him have this one. Chief Song, Division Commander Zhang is sitting here precisely to see justice done for me, but I also know this matter has nothing to do with Division Commander Zhang. Sir, I beg you, Director, please stand up for my family. Shiguang. My poor Shiguang is dead and his body has never been found. How am I supposed to swallow a single bite of food? As I cried, the director couldn't keep the conversation going. A flicker of interest flashed in Zhang Zeki's eyes. The director looked embarrassed, shot a fierce glare at my in-laws, and said coldly, go on. Then, what exactly happened? My mother-in-law still wanted to lie, so she went on. This letter was brought back by Ma Jiangan. It said Shiguang died out there. The letter was Shiguang's final wish. His father and I thought we'd help him fulfill it. Let Shiguang divorce Su Yeshu. That woman is a jinx. Our Lu family doesn't want her. I said through tears, Mom, that's just unconscionable of you. Everyone knows how I've treated you, Dad, and Shiguang all along. It's obvious to the naked eye. I'm starting to suspect that you want me to divorce Shiguang so he can find someone who can bear children, but you're unwilling to give me any compensation. What nonsense are you spouting? My father-in-law sharply interrupted me. I wasn't intimidated and continued, unless I see Lu Shiguang's corpse, otherwise he's hiding from me, wanting to divorce me and make me leave with nothing. Mom, Dad, is Shiguang really dead? Are you sure? My in-laws glanced at each other, both starting to panic, thinking I had figured something out. Who in their right mind would curse their own son to die? Shiguang was jinxed to death by you. Now our family doesn't want you. Pack your things, get out now. As she spoke, my mother-in-law reached out to push me. Zhang Zeki suddenly stood up and pulled me aside, saying coldly to my mother-in-law, Auntie, you're being way too hasty. The matter hasn't even been cleared up yet and you're already jumping to conclusions. That's not how the party does things. The party has always required us to work based on evidence, and I think Comrade Su's request is not unreasonable. This left my in-laws speechless, and all they could do was gasp in anger. I felt a little better inside and was very grateful that Zhang Zeki had stood up for me. The director had someone go and bring in Mama Jean for questioning. Mama Jean's name sounded like going forward, but in fact he was a spineless man with no ambition. Before bringing him in, Zhang Zeki's guard had already verbally warned him. Ma Shangjin told the truth as soon as he entered. I don't know anything. It was Shiguang who gave me $20 to help him deliver the letter. He said he was dead. If you have any questions, go ask Shiguang. The in-laws immediately said, Shangjin, you mustn't talk nonsense. Afraid of being locked up, Ma Shangjin immediately swore, if I, Ma Shangjin, am lying, may I be hit by a car the moment I step outside. Everyone, cars are a rare sight around here, even when swearing. This guy picks the safest possible oath. It's my turn to perform. My tears fell like beans. Mom, Dad, do you know that Lu Shiguang is not dead? Are you trying to push me and Shiguang toward a divorce? Because you dislike me for not being able to have children, but you haven't given me anything, and you're trying to make me leave with nothing, so you staged this. Mom, Dad, do you know that Lu Shiguang is not dead? Are you trying to push me and Shiguang toward a divorce because you dislike me for not being able to have children, but you haven't given me anything, and you're trying to make me leave with nothing, so you staged this? My in-laws ignored me. Zhang Zeki said calmly, this matter is too strange. Faking one's death is no small issue. Director Song, we need to investigate it thoroughly, otherwise it's not easy to report upward. After all, every seat has its occupant. He'll be going to work in another city soon, and it's a stable job. He can't just sit on the toilet seat and be a dead man. Zhang Zeki was threatening him. Father-in-law finally could no longer stay calm and said directly, our family just looks down on Su Yeshu for not being able to have children. Our family can't let that happen to Shiguang. End the family line. Su Yeshu, let me be blunt with you. You must divorce Shiguang. You can't delay Shiguang from having children with other women. I pretended to clutch my chest in pain. So, Shiguang has someone else outside. I was wondering why Shiguang hasn't come back, and also, doesn't give me money, but instead makes me spend my own, and none of you objected. So you're just letting me serve you all, while that Lu Shiguang uses my money to support a mistress and a child. Director Song, Division Commander Zhang, how can the Lu family bully a weak woman like me like this? I might as well just die. As I said this, I made a move to run headfirst into the wall. Zhang Zeki grabbed me and pulled me back. I struggled a few times but couldn't break free. This man had the strength of an ox. I gave him a meaningful look. Wanting to continue the act of running into the wall, he calmly took a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to me. Wipe your tears. Director Song and I are here, and we will definitely give you an explanation. Uncle Lu, tell us clearly what really happened. Zhang Zeki spoke up. This matter had to be brought to a conclusion. Director Song also pressured him. Old Lu, some things just shouldn't be done. Once done, they leave traces. If you still want what's best for Shiguang, you should tell the truth. Even if you want a divorce, you shouldn't deceive people. The phrase deceive people set the tone for the entire matter. My in-laws' eyes trembled violently. They only wanted me to leave with nothing, but they never intended for Lu Shiguang to face any trouble. The in-laws were left speechless, while the surrounding neighbors enjoyed the juicy gossip with sweet satisfaction. It's fake after all. I always said Shiguang was perfectly fine and not sick. How could he have died? Exactly. The Lu family is truly heartless. It's not that Su Yeshu doesn't want to have a child. Who can say for sure about health matters? Even if they wanted a divorce, they should have made things clear and given her a way out. Why resort to such a scheme? Isn't that pushing someone to their death? Who wouldn't agree? The Lu family is really unscrupulous. I actually believed what they said earlier. They talk like decent people but act in utterly inhuman ways. Disgusting. Chief Song cleared his throat twice and said, quiet, quiet. The crowd fell silent. The in-laws' eyes were red. The father-in-law could only say, Su Yeshu's inability to have children is a fatal flaw. There's no denying that. Even if my son finds another woman, it's because Su Yeshu couldn't keep him. She herself lacks the ability. Since the two are emotionally incompatible, divorce is normal. Director Song, what do you think? He didn't dare to ask Zhang Zeki. He only dared to ask Director Song, thinking that Director Song also didn't want to blow this matter up. After all, if word got out that such an outrageous thing happened under Director Song's jurisdiction, it wouldn't look good on him either. Sure enough, Director Song hesitated. Zhang Zeki was still beside me. I took his handkerchief and blew my nose hard. Zhang Zeki's eye twitched. Director Song, the Lu family wants me dead. They've ruined my reputation and won't give me anything in return. Even in ancient times, when a couple divorced, the dowry was returned. Besides, the Lu family is clearly in the wrong here. If it weren't for General Zhang today, I would have been wronged to death. General Zhang, Director Song, you must stand up for me. I won't let Director Song brush me off so easily. The Lu family won't get off lightly either. My in-laws pointed at me and scolded. Su Yeshu, you're infertile. Anyone else would have already gone off to die. Our Shiguang is the only son in the family. How could he possibly stay with someone who can't bear children? Today, you will leave whether you agree to the divorce or not. And as for the dowry, once it enters the Husband's family, it's unheard of to take it back. Out of respect for General Zhang and Director Liu, we'll let you pack a couple of clothes and go. Listen to that condescending tone, as if my few shabby clothes were some priceless treasure. I said coldly, no way, since we're separating, let's settle the accounts clearly. Every penny that's rightfully mine must be given to me, and only then will I agree to the divorce, otherwise, I'll sue Lu Shiguang for bigamy. You, shut your mouth, my mother-in-law was startled and looked worriedly at Director Song and Zhang Zeki. Zhang Zeki smiled with an ambiguous expression. Director Song glanced over, offered Zhang Zeki a cigarette. Zhang Zeki didn't refuse, took it, and played with it between his index and middle fingers. This made Director Song think there was still room for negotiation, so he immediately smiled and signaled the Liu family to keep calm. But who would have known? Zhang Zeki's next sentence was, Director Song, you really have a nice place here. Even the cigarettes smell better than the ones at the division headquarters. The scent is better. These words made Director Song's heart race a few times. The cigarettes he smoked today were definitely not what a director should be smoking. There was no need to explain what was going on. Everyone understood in their hearts, and Director Song was a sensible man. He understood that Zhang Zeki intended to intervene in today's matter, although he didn't know why. Director Song offered a flattering smile. I know I have the upper hand in this matter. He was willing to give Zhang Zeki some face. Don't laugh at me, Division Commander Zhang. Rest assured, I won't let a good person suffer injustice. Liu, Director Song glared at my father-in-law, who immediately said, Lu Laojian, your family's matter has alarmed Division Commander Zhang. This matter must be properly addressed. You are in the wrong here. How can you use someone's daughter and then push her to the brink of death? The daughter said she could resolve it, so you should follow her method to settle it. Otherwise, if she really sues Lu Shiguang for bigamy, Lu Shiguang won't be able to handle it. My father-in-law trembled. He may be domineering at home, but he knows nothing about official matters. Hearing Director Song say this, he became frightened. Then he said to me, what do you want? I stated my demand. Since all my dowry items are being used by you, convert them into cash and give it to me. Add to that the amount I've contributed to the Liu family over these years. Give me 1,000 yuan, and I'll go with Lu Shiguang to get the divorce certificate. 1,000 yuan, why don't you just go rob someone? Even robbing might not get you that much money. My mother-in-law was the first to lose her composure. Zhang Zeki and Director Song frowned. My father-in-law immediately signaled for my mother-in-law to shut up. 1,000 yuan, fine, as long as you agree to the divorce, I'll give you the money after the divorce is finalized. Does he think he's clever, or does he think I'm stupid? No way. If you give me the money today, I'll get the certificate today. If you don't give me the money today, I'm going to report Lu Shiguang today. If I don't get the money today, once Zhang Zeki leaves, I won't get a single cent. Don't talk nonsense. Shiguang doesn't have any other women. How could he commit bigamy? Even if you report him, it'll be useless. Lu Shiguang and that woman even have a child together. They just haven't registered their marriage and have been hiding it from everyone. He thinks I can't find any evidence, but what if those with nothing to lose fear nothing? I bet he doesn't dare to confront me head-on. Not a single cent less than 1,000 yuan. Wherever a person goes, they leave a trace. Wherever a wild goose flies, it leaves its call. I believe the party and the bureau chief will give me justice. My father-in-law was truly anxious. He could only signal with his eyes to my mother-in-law, telling her to go get the money. I know they have money. Even if Lu Shiguang won't give me any, would he dare not give any to his parents? The whole family is in cahoots, trying to feast on my suffering. I will definitely get my revenge for this grudge. My mother-in-law dawdled and reluctantly took out 1,000 yuan. The onlookers were just there for the spectacle. They were saying nasty things, making my in-laws hang their heads in shame. I counted the money and said to Zhang Zeki, the amount is correct. Division Commander Zhang, could you please take me to get a divorce from Lu Shiguang? He despises me for not being able to bear children, and I despise him for not being a real man. So be it, let's get divorced. My in-laws were trembling with anger, but I was secretly delighted. Zhang Zeki didn't refuse. He had the guard drive me and my in-laws to the Civil Affairs Bureau to handle the divorce procedures. With Director Song's words, the divorce procedures were quickly completed. Holding the divorce certificate, I finally felt at ease. Whether Lu Shiguang is dead or alive is none of my concern now, but I will take responsibility for reporting it. I packed up all my belongings and given them away, only taking my ID card, divorce certificate, and bankbook as I prepare to leave. I took advantage of finishing the divorce to directly deposit that 1,000 yuan, making it more convenient to carry. As I came out, I happened to run into Zhang Zeki standing by the car. I approached him and said, Division Commander Zhang, thank you so much for today. If it weren't for you, my situation would probably still be dragging on, and by then I have no people and no influence. I'd definitely be bullied to death. I genuinely think Shanzeki, after all, it had nothing to do with him, so I should at least thank him for letting me use him like that. Shanzeki smiled, a glint of clarity in his eyes, and said, knowing how to leverage limited resources to get things done for yourself means you're not a fool. Of course, I have my own reasons for helping you. Since it's help, I expect something in return. I didn't quite understand what Shanzeki meant. My wife passed away during childbirth, but the child survived. He's 6 this year, at that age where even cats and dogs find him annoying. I want to find someone to look after him, to keep him from going astray. I see you're capable, you don't take losses, and you definitely won't let those around you suffer either. You don't blame me for using you. I instantly realized that my little tricks had fooled everyone around me, but not this battle-hardened man. He gave a roguish laugh. It's not really using if I'm willing. What I'm willing to do isn't being used. Since you can't have children, my child in the future will be your child. How about that? I understood. Shanzeki had taken a liking to the fact that I couldn't bear children. I didn't put on airs either. To find a division commander as a husband was something many people could only dream of, let alone gaining a 6-year-old son on top of that. Why wouldn't I agree? But I had conditions. Commander Zhang, you're a sensible man, and when I speak to a sensible man, I won't beat around the bush. The Liu family has treated me like this, and I can't just let it go. If you can help me teach Liu Shiguang a lesson, I'll agree to your request. I had my own selfish motive. If Shanzeki didn't agree, then let alone saying I wouldn't repay him, I could still walk out with that 1,000 yuan and live very well. Even if I were to run a small business, I'd want this life to be easier than the last one. Shanzeki didn't hesitate for long. He opened the car door and said, let's go. Wait for news at my place. I also want to see whether you're up to the task. My guard went up, and I frowned. What if your son doesn't want me? Shanzeki laughed in exasperation, surely thinking I had no conscience at all. Don't worry, whether my son wants you or not, I'll keep my promise and help you to the end. I nodded and got into the car. Shanzeki asked me, do you want to go back and tell your family? I shook my head, my gaze falling on the familiar streets outside. I've lived here for a few years, and I still have some attachment to this place. There's no need to say anything. Before, I lived for others. I listened to my family and married someone I didn't like, working myself to the bone for a man who was nothing. From now on, I'll live for myself. There's nothing to say to others. Shanzeki didn't say anything more. Although he said he would marry me, he ultimately didn't, and given his status, it's not like he could rush to my house to propose and curry favor. When we arrived at Shanzeki's doorstep, I suggested, how about we say I'm the nanny you hired? We can talk about marriage once we're more familiar. Shanzeki raised an eyebrow and said, all right, I'll follow your lead. It seems he isn't the type to be overly eager or lustful. After some time, I got along quite well with Shanzeki's son, Zhang Ningwei. The little one insisted on sleeping with me every night. Though young, he was quite perceptive. One night while sleeping beside me, he whispered, Auntie, I know you're not the nanny, you're the stepmom Dad found for me. If you don't like it, you can talk to your dad and ask him to just treat me as a nanny. I was actually a bit hesitant. Zhang Ningwei is a pretty good kid. If he really objected to Shanzeki remarrying, I didn't necessarily have to marry him. As long as I get paid, I'm willing to make taking care of Zhang Ningwei my career, not be a free housekeeper. Zhang Ningwei shook his head. That wouldn't be good for your reputation. My dad is a responsible person. If he brought you home, it means he approves of you. Auntie, I'm not a stingy person. I was angry with Dad before because all those aunties around him had ulterior motives. They tried to please me to win my dad's heart and make him abandon me. I understand all that, but during this time, I've seen that you simply liking my dad, you just want a home, so I like you. At least you're not fake. Thank you for having such bright eyes and seeing things so clearly. It's making me a bit unconfident in my acting skills. So you don't mind if I marry your dad? I'll tell you a secret, I really want a mom. My dad is too busy. Before, it was just me and my grandma at home, but grandma passed away from illness last year. My dad hired several temporary nannies for me, all very young, and you could tell at a glance they weren't sincere. They were after my dad's good looks and money. You think quite highly of your own dad, then am I not being greedy? I want money too, and I'm also greedy for your dad's good looks. I forced myself to finish speaking, my old face flushing red. Shanzeki is quite good looking. Zhang Ningwei hummed in agreement and said, Auntie, I understand, a woman always has to want something. You're so much younger than my dad. My dad says the food you cook has the taste of my mom's cooking. I know Dad is moved, so you go for him. He's happy about it. He's happy, so I'm happy. I like you too. And you two can still give me a little sister. I want a sister of my own. Me, how can this child be so heartwarming? Zhang Zeki really has good fortune on second thought. If I were to marry Zhang Zeki, Zhang Ningwei would be my son. Well, it's not impossible. That night, Zhang Ningwei and I slept soundly through the night. Early the next morning, Zhang Zeki returned and told me that the matter he was handling was making progress, and he had the guard take me to have a look. I met Lu Shiguang at the police station. He hung his head, looking fearful upon seeing me. He immediately put on a guarded expression. You already took the money, why are you still suing me? I didn't commit bigamy. I just wanted to have a son with a sex worker. Do you understand the nature of what you've done? The guard almost burst out laughing. Lu Shiguang immediately shut his mouth. I looked at Lu Shiguang. My emotions had long since settled. This man wasn't worth any of my feelings. I took back everything I had given. Lu Shiguang, if you want a divorce from me, just say it. I won't cling to you. But what your family is doing is leaving me no way out. Even a rabbit will bite when cornered. If I bite you, you deserve it. Woo-woo. I'm begging you. I've already been arrested because of the prostitute. What more do you want from me? I never did you wrong before. I just wanted a child. I admit my family went too far, but I don't regret it. Everything was for the sake of the Lu family having an heir. The guard hesitated to speak. I stood up and left. I came to see Lu Shiguang this time just to say goodbye to the past. He's lost his job, his face, and dignity. It'll be hard for him to live smoothly from now on. The guard escorted me home, and I saw Zhang Zeki hadn't left upon seeing me. He said, today is a good day, let's go, get our marriage certificate. I nodded. I, Su Yeshu, am also determined to live my own life well. Life after marriage was very peaceful, except that Zhang Zeki was a bit clingy. I thought all men were as weak as Lu Shiguang, but I never expected Zhang Zeki to be not weak at all. I was even worried the bed at home wasn't sturdy enough. Zhang Zeki probably worried too, so he replaced it with a sturdier bed, which led to me being teased by the people in the residential compound for several days. I had a pleasant time with Zhang Ningwei, and we took the kids home for a visit during the summer vacation. I just didn't expect that while eating at home, I suddenly felt nauseous. When my mom asked about my period, I realized it seemed like I hadn't had one for 2 months since I thought I couldn't conceive. I never paid much attention to my periods after my mom mentioned it. I went for a checkup, and to my surprise, I was pregnant. I was completely stunned. My mom cried and said, heaven has finally opened its eyes. Everyone said you couldn't have children, but this pregnancy is truly a miracle. The doctor said, what do you mean you can't conceive? This young lady is in excellent health, and she's still at a prime age for having children. Doctor, are you sure you're not mistaken? My daughter was married before, and they told her she couldn't have children. My mother didn't believe it, and I was skeptical too. The doctor said, I'm not sure about other things, but the female comrade is in very good health, and the baby is also very healthy. I suggest you follow up. My mother took me out and said angrily, it must be Lu Shiguang who can't have children, and he even slandered you. The Lu family has no good people. The child that woman he married brought along might not even be his. That woman's child might not even be his. My mother went home happily, handing out wedding candies to the neighbors and telling them I was pregnant. The news soon reached the Lu family. After being released from prison, Lu Shiguang was very depressed and didn't work. The woman he was with scolded him every day. When Lu Shiguang heard I was pregnant, he couldn't believe it and came running to see me. I was taking Zhang Ningwei to buy little goldfish. He tugged at me, asking me to give him a little sister, and I smiled and said okay. Lu Shiguang stared at my belly with a shocked expression. I said calmly, the doctor said I can have children. I'm very healthy. The one who can't is you. Lu Shiguang. Later, Zhang Zeki drove back himself and took me and Zhang Ningwei home. I was somewhat at a loss for how to explain. After all, Zhang Zeki sought me out in the first place because I couldn't have children. After Zhang Ningwei had fallen asleep that night, I decided to have a talk with Zhang Zeki. Zhang Zeki, if you don't want this child, I won't make things hard for you either. Let's get a divorce. I knew that, according to my military roommate's rules, a second child was not allowed. What do you mean? You came to me in the first place because I couldn't have children. This one in my belly is outside the plan, but I treasure it. I thought I would never be able to have children in my whole life. I'll give birth to it and raise it myself, and I won't make things difficult for you. You can. I couldn't go on. During all this time, Zhang Zeki had always done as I said. He's macho, but he's still willing to let me manage the money and take care of our son, and at home he listens to me too. There's no way I could be completely unmoved. Just thinking about him looking for other women made my heart ache with a dense, prickling pain. I can do what? You want to arrange another woman for me? What kind of man do you take me for? I knew all along that you could have children. If I hadn't wanted it, I would have definitely taken precautions. This child was part of my plan. It just came a little sooner than expected. I looked up, my face filled with astonishment. He smiled and pinched my cheek. All right, you're not old, but you sure have a lot on your mind. When I investigated Lu Shiguang back then, how could I not have looked into it thoroughly? Why didn't you tell me? Tell you so you could take precautions. Didn't you say you wanted to live for yourself? And don't you also want a child? As for the family planning policy, my family situation is special. Ningwei isn't actually my biological child, he's the child of a comrade in arms that my ex-wife and I adopted. I had already submitted a report to the higher-ups long ago, saying we could have this one. Just put your mind at ease. I immediately felt reassured. I truly want to have this child later. When Zhang Qiqi turned 3 and started kindergarten, through my own diligent study and with Zhang Zeki's connections, I secured a stable job. Zhang Ningwei dotes on his little sister, rushing to the kindergarten every day after school. To pick her up, I can pick up both children at once. Zhang Zeki had a vasectomy before I gave birth. Now our family lives in harmony. I ran into Lu Shiguang while I was with the children. It seemed he had come specifically to find me. I knew he had divorced the woman he remarried. My mom told me it was because the child that woman had wasn't his. Serves him right, karma. I didn't look at Lu Shiguang anymore. I held the child and got on my bike, ready to leave. I hadn't gone far when I heard a loud crash behind me. Someone said there had been a traffic accident. I turned back and glanced, and saw that Lu Shiguang was gone. My pupils contracted, because Lu Shiguang was lying on the ground not far away, blood gushing everywhere. His gaze was unfocused as he looked in my direction, his eyes filled with something I couldn't understand. It seemed as if he had taken on the fate of my previous life, but it didn't matter anymore. I said to the child, "Don't look around, let's go home, Dad is coming back for dinner today." Great. I didn't look back again, because that wasn't my fate. Story 2. At the age of 32, I kept a poor male college student. Passing by the university, I saw Shurjin pinning a girl in his arms. His eyes were red, looking aggrieved and forbearing. Don't think I'm dirty. It was a proper nurturing relationship. How come it seemed like I had defiled Shurjin if he thought it was dirty? There were plenty of people who didn't. I spat out a puff of smoke, turned to look at a young man with dyed yellow hair wearing fake brands passing by, and said, "Ask him if he'd like to recognize a mommy." She was brought to my office in the afternoon. Sunlight passed through the floor to ceiling windows on the 32nd floor and landed on his Balenciaga t-shirt, Yohji Yamamoto pants, and Louis Vuitton shoes. Fake, still fake, but he had a good-looking face, unlike Shurjin, who looked cold and aloof, with an air of pride. She was like a product of technology, a plastic surgery template. Exquisite, cheap, and a bit worldly, but I'd had enough of the refined stuff and wanted to try something more down to earth today. Anyway, they were all out to sell themselves. Why should I choose someone who did it reluctantly? As soon as he opened his mouth, I knew I had made the right choice. "I heard you want to be my mom. Should I call you directly?" He was so quick-witted, but I wasn't into that. I had a feeling that today he'd want me to support his debut. Tomorrow, he'd ask me to find resources for him to play the male lead. The day after tomorrow, he'd be exposed for being kept and beg me to suppress the negative news. This was exactly what I was looking for. I ignored him and flipped through the materials sent by Secretary Wang. He was from a small city in a less developed county. His family wasn't poor, and their conditions were much better than Shurjin's alcoholic father and gambling-addicted mother. His grades were average, much worse than Shurjin's, but he was actually 5 centimeters taller than Shurjin. I looked up at him, and he smiled at me, showing 8 teeth. He was good-looking, but a bit obsequious. I pursed my lips, feeling a bit disgusted. "How many people have you been with, men or women?" Xi's expression remained calm, without any sense of shame at being offended. "Just you, liar," I said. "Secretary Wang will take you to the hospital for a full body check later. If there's no problem, come see me in a week." "Okay, miss." He left cheerfully. When he turned around, I saw his perky buttocks. I thought for 2 seconds whether he had something padded. A week later, before Zhou arrived, I saw Shurjin first. He was wearing a washed-out white shirt, faded jeans, and a pair of canvas shoes, fresh and handsome, a proper poor boy campus heartthrob. He got off the bus, not even willing to take a taxi. I really didn't know where the 300,000 yuan I gave him every month had gone. Don't get me wrong, he wasn't coming to see me. Usually, it was me who went to him. He came to work part-time at the coffee shop downstairs of my company. As usual, his appearance attracted little girls to ask for his contact information. Shurjin refused, saying he had someone he liked in the past, I would have confidently thought that person was me. After all, I was beautiful, rich, and generous. The last point was the key. Not liking me was no different from not liking money. It wasn't like I was asking him to be passionately in love with me. We were all adults. Taking so much from me and not giving even a little bit of liking in return was a bit hypocritical. I walked in and casually took a seat. Jean didn't notice me. Just then, a girl dressed exquisitely walked in. Jean saw her immediately and froze in nervousness at the same time. The girl was wearing a Chanel-style suit, with a Meow hairpin, going for a wealthy daughter look. I didn't get a good look at her last time at the university. This time, I saw her face clearly. I went through the list of powerful families in City A in my mind but couldn't figure out which family's daughter she was while I was distracted. Jin's face had turned completely red. I heard him tentatively ask, "Are you here to see me?" The girl raised her chin and said, "No, I just heard the coffee here is good." If Jean had a tail, it would have drooped by now. "Recommend some coffee for me." Jean immediately introduced all the coffee on the menu conscientiously. He explained it in great detail, talking about the origin of the beans and their taste one by one. Several people in the queue behind left impatiently, but the girl seemed not to have listened to anything and casually ordered the house special. Jean then considerately introduced the way to drink it to her, telling her it was a bit bitter. He was completely different from the way he was in front of me. Being as humble as he could be, I wasn't angry, I was just puzzled. Why wasn't he like this in front of me? I was his benefactor after all, eh? Moment later, I suddenly realized and laughed out loud. He seemed to think that his youth was an equivalent exchange for the 300,000 yuan I gave him every month, a house I gave him, and countless gifts. The men in our family all had the tradition of keeping someone. I had seen female college students, female celebrities, and some professionals. A few days ago, my uncle almost had a child from his affair and gave 3 million yuan as a breakup fee. A benefactor like me, who was so generous and not unpleasant to look at, was hard to come by. Just because it was a mutual agreement didn't mean he wasn't taking advantage. Before, I indulged Jean, and I didn't care about these small amounts of money. He took the money but stood me up several times. He either said he had to go tutoring, do part-time jobs, or had work in the student union or in the laboratory. I wasn't angry. I even asked the maid to cook soup and send it to him once. When my father saw me, he thought I was in love and gave me a warning: don't get too involved. My indulgence towards Jean seemed to make everyone think that my liking for him was something special. It was ridiculous to say. I had thought so myself at times. Before I kicked my brother abroad and took the position of general manager, I had never been in a relationship. Of course, I didn't want to either. I felt it was a bit boring, so I got up and left the coffee shop. As I left, the bell on the door jingled. The person behind the counter seemed to look over. That night, she came to my villa. To my surprise, according to the medical report, he was clean and healthy, not even a nodule. Unlike last time when he was wearing big logo street-style clothes, this time he was dressed very simply: a white t-shirt, jeans, and sports shoes. His hair, which had been heavily gelled before, hung down, slightly covering his eyes. Presumably, Secretary Wang had told him to dress like Jean. I frowned. Before I could speak, the person in front of me had taken off his t-shirt, well-defined abs. I wasn't sure if they were real. He chuckled twice. "Miss, do you not like me dressed like this?" "Neither do I." As he said this, he walked over familiarly and touched my hand. I didn't react in time. For a moment, I felt like I was taken advantage of by a young hooligan until he took the hair tie from my wrist. He tied his semi-long hair into a small ponytail at the back of his head. I let out a sigh of relief. Then I heard him say, "Miss, are you hungry? I'll cook noodles for you." The breath I had just let out almost got stuck in my throat. He looked at the maid coming out of the kitchen, carrying a garbage bag and leaving, and said with a bit of regret, "It seems you've eaten." I understood what he meant and hesitated for a moment before asking him, "Have you not eaten? Do you want something to eat?" Before I could finish, he said thank you. He even found an excuse for himself: "I need to eat enough to serve you well later." Then he cooked 3 bowls of noodles for himself and ate them clean as if he were a starving ghost. I recalled the information: he shouldn't be unable to afford a meal. I said, "There are steaks in the fridge." She shook his head and said, "No need for the steak. I have to work first to get paid." I understood. I actually felt a bit relieved for a moment and affirmed my decision again. I should have found someone who was dead. Said on this. Half an hour later, I regretted it. The fresh smell of body wash enveloped me. The original trace of unfamiliarity was replaced by heat, and soon I had no time to think about anything else. She didn't forget to provide emotional value. "Miss, you're so beautiful. I'm really lucky. Miss, this is so great." I felt like I had become vulgar. It was like I had hired a farmhand in the village. This vulgar feeling lasted until the next morning. I asked desperately, "Did you take something?" "What?" She was stunned. Yeah, I took 10, to make you happy. Forget it, he didn't take anything, he was just lying to me to show his service attitude. Finally, at 2 in the afternoon, I got up, supporting my waist. There was a meeting I couldn't postpone, so I had to crawl to the company if necessary. As I was getting dressed, I heard Joshi say, "Miss, can you help me enter the entertainment industry?" My hand paused as I was buttoning my clothes, and then I rolled my eyes skillfully. "You've only been here once, and you're already making demands on me. 10 times, he corrected me. That's not what I'm talking about." After being rejected by me, Joshi's good-looking face, which was like a ragdoll cat's, instantly drooped. He wrinkled his nose and complained, "Miss, you said you didn't want it." This comprehension ability, I was really convinced if I hadn't met him at the university, I would have suspected he hadn't gone to school. No, that didn't mean he was studying there. I asked Joshi, "Are you from University A?" Joshi shook his head honestly. "No, I knew it, I casually made a promise, in a couple of years, I'll send you abroad to get some polish." Joshi seemed to want to say something but held back. "Miss, I don't want to study." I knew. He just wanted to enter the entertainment industry. I waved my hand, indicating that he should stop talking. I had to go to a meeting. I got into the car that Secretary Wang had been waiting in. I turned my head and took a look. Joshi was lying on the balcony, waving goodbye to me with a mess of hair and a face that was both innocent and alluring. The sunlight shone on his face, making him look like Cupid in Greek mythology. He was also not wearing pants. Impressive. "Miss, come back early." I rubbed my forehead and smiled bitterly. No one must know that I had kept someone like him. As I was looking at the documents, I said, "Secretary Wang, send him some spring limited items." He didn't suit the innocent-looking style like Shurjin. Wearing those fake brands all day was embarrassing me. Secretary Wang was stunned for a moment and then said yes. After the meeting, after dealing with a group of old-fashioned people, I was exhausted and slumped in my office chair. I wasn't usually this tired, but today I was especially worn out. It was probably because I didn't sleep last night. The Chui family was like most wealthy families. My father and mother were married for business, and they each did their own thing. Their relationship was quite good. Otherwise, there wouldn't be the three of us siblings, my useless elder brother, my love-struck younger sister, and perfect me. Since I was born, my life had been arranged. If I wanted more, I had to fight for it myself. I fought and got it, but was this really what I wanted? "Miss," my buttocks felt cold. Before I could finish my life contemplation, I saw a head pop out from under the table. "What are you doing?" Joshi kissed my thigh. I looked at him expressionlessly. Joshi's well-sculpted face blushed for the first time. He was a bit shy but said something astonishing. "I just learned this in the afternoon. I heard that bosses and their secretaries like to play like this." What a self-motivated pretty boy. Joshi thought I agreed. The white clouds outside the window were swaying, and for a moment, there was silence. Was it me keeping him or him keeping me? He really wanted to enter the entertainment industry. 3 hours later, Secretary Wang called on the internal line. "Ms. Chui, Mr. Sure is here." This was really unexpected. Today was the day I had an appointment with Shurjin to meet once a week. It wasn't strange that he came to see me. However, he often stood me up, and it was already 11 o'clock at night. I lit a cigarette and said to the person on the other end of the phone, "I'm not available to see him today. Ask him to go back." Secretary Wang was silent for a moment and said, "I told Mr. Sure the same thing, but he insisted on waiting for you to finish your work and see you. He's in the meeting room next to yours now." I frowned. Just as I was about to say something, a small face leaned over and took a puff of the cigarette from my fingers. Then he was choked. He coughed violently. I hung up the phone. "Miss, don't smoke." Just when I thought Joshi had suddenly changed his approach and was going to be a caring person, I heard him say, "You should smoke cigars. You'll look cooler." The ash shook and fell onto the marble floor tiles. I said, "You can go back first. I have something to deal with." Joshi didn't ask much and left immediately. Shurjin was brought in, still wearing that white shirt and jeans. I was getting a bit tired of seeing it. He stood in front of me, his tone accusatory. "Chui Yuntan, I was fired." He seemed to think that I had asked the store manager to fire him. After all, that coffee shop was mine. He was working part-time there with a monthly internship salary of 50,000 yuan. I raised an eyebrow. "So?" Shurjin's face looked a bit ugly. He still stood straight, his hands clenched into fists at his sides, and his tone became more aggressive. "Did someone in the store say something to you?" Yeah, is just my junior sister. I was just doing what a store clerk should do." "You can't just fire me like that. You rich people are always so arrogant." I interrupted him. "Then I'll ask the coffee shop to re-hire you." Shurjin's words stopped abruptly. He didn't expect me to be so easy-going. That's good." I smiled and continued, "Like other interns, 3,000 yuan a month. Are you willing?" Shurjin stared at me with wide eyes, as if He had been insulted. He was silent for a few seconds. Chui Yuntan, stop messing around. I told you. Yeah, and I are not in a romantic relationship. A hint of impatience emerged in his brows and eyes. I sized him up and suddenly found him a bit rough and dull. His skin wasn't as smooth as Zhou Shi's. His eyes weren't as bright. His lips weren't as pink. His nose wasn't as high. His legs weren't as long. And his abs weren't as firm. And his skills were poor too. Well, Zhou Shi wasn't much better either, but at least he was willing to learn. Yeah, the name was quite cute. I casually said it, not expecting Shurjin to be on high alert. If you have anything, come at me. She doesn't know anything. I suddenly found it very funny. I deliberately asked, what do you think I'm going to do to her? Suddenly, Shurjin's gaze fixed on one place. His expression became instantly dull, his eyes blank. And he didn't even care about my question. I followed his gaze. On the polyform sofa, a pair of CK underwear was lying there furtively, quietly listening to the conversation between Shurjin and me. As we all know, people tend to laugh when they're speechless. Shurjin finally turned to look at me, and then he saw the smile on my face. The person who had been keeping a distance from me as if avoiding suspicion just now walked right up to me in an instant. Chui Yuntan, are you that desperate? Just because I didn't come to see you for a month, you went looking for that kind of man? I wanted to say that Zhou Shi wasn't that kind of man, but I couldn't say it. He was that kind of man. Shurjin, the poor but proud campus heartthrob who wasn't afraid of power, actually had red eyes all of a sudden. Do you know how dirty that kind of man is? Shurjin's voice was loud. He came to grab my wrist, losing his composure for the first time. It seemed he was afraid that I might really catch some dirty disease. The glass on the table fell to the ground and shattered. There was a knock on the door, and Secretary Wang said, Ms. Chui, do you need me to come in? Shurjin was still chattering on. Chui Yuntan, you don't have to degrade yourself like this just to make me jealous. I raised my voice. Come in. Secretary Wang came in with two bodyguards who were 9 meters tall. The bodyguards immediately separated Shurjin and me. They stood on either side of Shurjin, ready to stop him from suddenly hurting me. Shurjin looked at me in disbelief. I looked at Shurjin with a half smile. Who gave you the right to talk to me like this? Maybe as a benefactor, I had been too lenient, so much so that he couldn't figure out our relationship. Shurjin's face suddenly turned pale. He never thought I would talk to him like this. He pursed his lips and said, we're equal. I didn't even want to hear this kind of talk. If we're so equal, why don't I see you giving me 300,000 yuan a month? Shurjin was speechless. I raised an eyebrow. Take the money and do your job well. You didn't do that. He seemed to have never heard me speak so directly to him and was shocked into widening his eyes. I didn't bother to pay attention to him and got up to leave. Shurjin wanted to follow, but was stopped by the bodyguards. I walked quickly behind me. Secretary Wang took back the card for my exclusive elevator from Shurjin and said, Mr. Sure, please make an appointment before coming to see Ms. Chui next time. I didn't buy a house for Zhou Shi because he refused to leave my villa. 2 months later, I was lying there like a dead dog. Zhou Shi lit a cigar for me. I said, I'll help you enter the entertainment industry. But Zhou Shi, contrary to his usual self, wasn't very happy. He kissed me on the lips, and I subconsciously shivered. Thank you, miss, but it's not urgent. I still want to stay with you for a few more days. I was in a hurry. I was almost exhausted. Obviously, 2 months ago, he was eager to go that day. I gave him a card with a fixed monthly deposit of 300,000 yuan for him. Unexpectedly, Zhou Shi refused. Miss, I don't want your money. I want you to help me get into acting. Smart kid. He understood that it's better to teach a man to fish than to give him a fish. He was really lucky to have hooked up with me. The entertainment industry is a complex place. The influence of technology tycoons, newly rich people, and real estate moguls doesn't work as well, but the Chui family has been involved in this field for a long time, and there's a brokerage company under it, which is one of the 3 giants in the entertainment industry. I replied to him at that time, it depends on your performance. Now I regret it. I didn't hold the cigar steady, and it fell onto the carpet. When I bent down to pick it up, the quilt covering me slipped off. The next moment, a hand replaced the quilt, warming me. Miss, Zhou Shi's eyes darkened, and he kissed me again. I stopped his action. He pouted and looked at me in confusion. I forced a couple of laughs, trying to change the subject. Don't you have anything else to do? He had been staying with me for 2 whole months, either in the gym or studying in the home theater. I originally wanted to ask him if he didn't need to go to school, but then I remembered that he didn't want to study. After thinking hard for a few seconds, I finally found an excuse. Don't you need to maintain your face regularly? Zhou Shi rubbed his face. Miss, it's all real. Let you touch it. As he said this, he grabbed my hand and put it on his tall nose, then on his small mouth, then on his chest muscles, his abs. I quickly pulled my hand back. I know, it's all real, it's all real. I finally understood he was now addicted. Entering the entertainment industry wasn't urgent anymore. What was urgent was to conquer me. No way. Recently, Secretary Wang has been looking at me strangely on her left face. It seems to say, from now on, the king, and on her right face, no morning court. I patted Joshi's bicep and said, I'll introduce you to some directors tonight. That night I introduced Joshi to an idol drama director. Director Zhang was very obliging, MS Chui's younger brother. Of course I'll take good care of him. What year are you in college? Joshi said, sophomore year. Sophomore year. I was a bit surprised. So young. Joshi winked at me secretly. Not young, me. I didn't expose his self-fabricated background. Joshi auditioned for a role on the spot. Director Zhang offered him the third male lead. The audition scene was that after he fell in love with the female lead, he locked her in a hotel and confessed. The female lead rejected him and slapped him. He needed to show his infatuation and the domineering president vibe. The script wasn't fully finalized yet, so Joshi had to improvise the lines. I volunteered to step in as the absent female lead for the audition. I sat on the sofa. Joshi knelt at my feet. The director said action. The obsequious and cute look on Joshi's face disappeared instantly. His almond-shaped eyes stared intently at me. His Adam's apple moved, and his long fingers ran through my hair, turning my face to face him directly. Our eyes met. His eyes were dark, and there was a smile on his lips that didn't reach his eyes. Do you really have to like that? Sure guy. Am I not good enough? I didn't need to say any lines, just act like a statue. But Joshi seemed to have heard me say no. His jaw tightened, and he sneered, leaning in closer. Cui Yunten. I serve you better than he does, don't I, sister? If you see him again, I'll lock you up. He held my face, and jealousy was evident in his brows and eyes. Director Zhang said Joshi's acting was average. He overacted. He didn't look like a domineering president but more like a mistress, but he was so good looking that he passed anyway. The day before joining the crew, I locked him out of the door. Miss, I want to repay you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to enter the entertainment industry. I said, if you really want to repay me, give me some peace. Tonight, Joshi kept pestering me, but I'm leaving tomorrow. I'll be filming on location for 3 months, and I won't be able to see you. He stubbornly refused to leave. I pretended not to hear. Finally, there was no sound outside the door. 3 hours later, I opened the door. Joshi was sitting against the door, holding a pillow, and almost fell over. He woke up instantly and slipped in when I wasn't prepared. In a flash, he was already lying on my bed. Miss, I won't do anything. I just want to hold you and sleep. Fine. I didn't expect him to keep his promise, but he was surprisingly obedient. Early the next morning, the driver took Joshi to the airport. Before leaving, he pulled off my nightgown just when I thought he was going to do something. I saw him stuffing my nightgown into his suitcase. I gave him a bleary glare. Joshi kissed me on the forehead. Miss, come and see me. I didn't answer and pulled the covers over my head to go back to sleep. A month later, I received a gift from Joshi. Of course, I hadn't visited him once in this month. I did answer his calls a few times, but I was really busy recently, and I hung up in less than a minute each time. The gift was a teddy bear. It was colorful, childish, cheap-looking, and a bit ugly. This was the first gift I had ever received from a lover. Shurjin had never given me any on Valentine's Day. I mentioned it once in a high-end restaurant. I gave Shurjin a 1 million yuan watch and then asked him, do you have anything for me? Shurjin said, do you still need me to give you something? You have everything. He didn't seem to be in a good mood when he said this. Secretary Wang said that some time ago, Shurjin's father had beaten his mother again, and his mother had come to the school to ask him for money. I understood his mood and didn't hold his bad attitude against him. The two bear eyes stared at me. It looked like Joshi pulling me out of my memories. The bear looked a bit familiar, but I couldn't figure out what brand it was. After looking at it for a while, when it looked at me, I felt a twinge of guilt, guilty for not visiting the set. Just as I was thinking whether to go or not, I received a call from Shurjin. This was really rare compared to Joshi, who called 3 times a day. Shurjin rarely took the initiative to contact me. I picked up the phone. I didn't speak. The other side was also silent for a long time. Presumably realizing that I wouldn't speak first, Shurjin said, I received your apology. Let's make up. I didn't understand. I looked at the calendar on the table and immediately understood. Today was Shurjin's birthday, and many luxury brands would send him gifts today. Of course, I had arranged it. I really liked that restaurant last time. We can have dinner there tonight. Shurjin paused and continued. I also have a few senior brothers and sisters from the laboratory. They'll come too. I interrupted him. I forgot to ask Secretary Wang to cancel it. What? I said, those gifts can be regarded as a breakup fee. The last time I saw Shurjin, my mind was still in a mess, and I forgot to make things clear with him. I didn't have that much time to play the game of breaking up and making up with him. My time with him wasn't very pleasant. It was really a losing deal, but I was a generous benefactor, and I wouldn't take back what I had given him. A fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. This taught me that I shouldn't be so generous when keeping a young lover in the future. Being too generous made people get carried away. Jean seemed unable to accept what I said. Chui Yuntan, are you still jealous, or is that man causing trouble? I'm telling you, he's just after your money. I remembered the fabric of the teddy bear. It was from Zhou Shi's favorite limited edition pajamas. Did he make it into a teddy bear? I picked up the teddy bear and examined it carefully. The crooked stitches, the knots that weren't hidden well. Could it really be sewn by Zhou Shi himself? This was interesting. I didn't listen to what Jean was still saying. I hung up the phone casually and then told Secretary Wang to make arrangements for me to visit the set. The private jet landed. The commercial vehicle took me all the way to the filming set. It was a coincidence. Zhou Shi was filming a scene with the female lead. He had affectionate eyes and was acting really well. The female lead also seemed to have been pushed into the role by someone. She wasn't a professional actress. She froze 3 times facing Zhou Shi's face, blushing and not daring to look at him. Zhou Shi was very kind, telling her to take her time and not be nervous. A staff member standing next to me whispered in excitement, "I'm shipping it." Zhou Shi turned his head and saw me. To be fair, Zhou Shi was quite talented in acting. During the audition, I didn't know if he was hiding his abilities or what. He brought the villainous domineering president role to life, just like how he played my young lover, snobbish, cute, and looking at me with a hint of faint love in his eyes, perfectly in line with my imagination. Zhou Shi pulled me into his nanny car. I soon couldn't breathe. When he was in a hurry to take off his clothes, I kicked him. "Miss, do you want to use your feet?" I was speechless. Sometimes being too quick-witted wasn't necessarily a good thing. It lacked a bit of shyness. Zhou Shi seemed to notice that I wasn't in high spirits and listlessly put his clothes back on. "Why did you come to see me so late?" he complained to me. 3 parts complaining, 3 parts acting coquettish, and the remaining 4 parts pure acting. "When did you arrive?" I said. "Just when you said to the female lead, 'Can't you tell that I love you?'" Zhou Shi panicked immediately. "Then you saw me holding her." "Miss, don't be angry. It's all acting. I used a double for the kissing scene. Sister Wang has arranged it for me." I touched his face and asked him lazily, "Do you have any more scenes today?" Zhou Shi quickly shook his head. "When I saw you coming, I asked the director to reschedule my scenes. He wasn't even a big star yet, but he was already acting like one. I could almost picture him in the future, half famous but with a lot of negative news." Zhou Shi asked, "So, today, shall I take you around?" He was massaging my feet while being overly solicitous. "Miss, are you tired? How about going to watch a movie first?" So, Zhou Shi and I went to watch a movie like an ordinary young couple. Secretary Wang booked the whole theater. Then we strolled along the street, with bodyguards following us from a distance of about 100 meters. After that, we played golf. Finally, we returned to the suite, and Zhou Shi helped me remove my makeup and take a bath. Indiana fact, there wasn't much makeup to remove, just a bit of sunscreen. He didn't dare to think I was ugly. After all, he was taking my money. This is the advantage of keeping a lover over being in a relationship. I can be completely myself, vent my emotions on him, and not care about his feelings. Zhou Shi hugged me from behind. "Miss, I want to." I closed my eyes. "I don't want to." Zhou Shi rubbed against my neck, acting coquettishly. "Please, miss, it's been a month. I can't hold it any longer." I was so annoyed. When I was almost dizzy, I suddenly woke up. "Why does it feel a bit like being in a relationship? This can't be. Maybe I should try using a steel wool ball next time." The ancient idol drama, Falling in Love with You in 8 Lives and 8 Worlds, that Zhou Shi participated in, was aired. The drama flopped, but Zhou Shi became popular. It was really beyond my expectation. Zhou Shi suddenly got busy, with a lot of promotional articles and variety show invitations. Facing his plastic surgery-looking face, fans said this was the strong, featured type. Zhou Shi had a dissolute-looking face, but his dressing style was abstinent. He would button his shirt all the way to the top button and zip his hoodie up to the top. This was the image packaged for him by the professional team. His persona was a rich young master bravely entering the entertainment industry. So far, none of his primary school classmates, junior high school classmates, or fellow workers from the same factory have come forward to expose him. I called Secretary Wang and asked her to be ready to suppress any negative news about Zhou Shi at any time. When I got off work, I ran into Jean. I sized him up. It seemed this wasn't really a coincidence. Jean looked exhausted. His eyes were especially gentle today. "Chui Yuntan, I don't know why, but I've been thinking about you a lot these past few months." After saying this, his ears turned a bit red. I knew why. I recalled the information I had received before. He was Shurjin's direct junior sister. When Secretary Wang reported this to me, I was puzzled for a while. It's not like ancient times when people learned skills from a master. Why is there such a term as direct junior sister? I studied abroad and came back, so I'm not very familiar with this academic atmosphere full of worldly sophistication and cliques. The students in Shurjin's laboratory were exploited quite severely. He was among them, and she often asked Shurjin for help. Gradually, the two got familiar with each other, but there was no ambiguity between them, until last Valentine's Day. He suddenly became interested in Shurjin. She didn't throw money at him like I did, nor did she like to confess directly like my sister, Cui Qinghuan. He was quite skilled at chasing people. Secretary Wang said she even paid to attend a class on how to chase your crush skills. I asked Secretary Wang to sign Cui Qinghuan up for the same class. She was a pure love enthusiast but had never successfully chased anyone, so she probably needed it. I don't know why He suddenly became interested in Shurjin, until I saw the Rolex Sky Dweller Ice Blue on Shurjin's hand. It was the one I gave him last Valentine's Day. He was very successful in her pursuit. Shurjin spent a lot of money on her, my money. When I heard this, I was so angry that I laughed. But since I separated from Shurjin, major brands no longer send him things on time according to the seasons. Most of the money he got from me was used to pay off his family's debts. He also gave away a lot of luxury clothes to his roommates, classmates, senior brothers and sisters in the same department, especially He. When he was with me, he was used to receiving these things but also looked down on them, thinking they were traps of consumerism and products of capitalism, without any real value. I don't care how he disposed of the things I gave him, but after knowing this, I was still speechless for a few seconds. At this moment, Shurjin stood in front of me. His skin seemed rougher, his complexion duller, and his eyebrows were not very delicate. He had a strong office worker smell. It was the smell of being overworked. Why on earth did I fall for Shurjin back then? I tried hard to recall. At that time, I was in a fierce fight with my elder brother. My father supported my elder brother, and my mother tried to be neutral. Only Cui Qinghuan supported me, but her support didn't help much. I worked so hard to grab a project that I had a gastric hemorrhage. When I was squatting on the roadside, I met Shurjin, who was delivering food. Without hesitation, he dropped his work and took me to the nearby hospital, leaning on his back. I smelled the aroma of preserved egg and lean meat congee in the thermal box. Secretary Wang came and gave Shurjin 8,000 yuan as a thank you gift. 2 years later, I became the general manager and the sole heir of the Cui family's business. One night when I suddenly wanted to eat preserved egg and lean meat congee, I thought of Shurjin, and the next day, I saw Shurjin coming to the villa next door to be a tutor. At that time, Cui Qinghuan had been crying in my house for a month because of a broken heart. When she saw me looking at Shurjin a few more times, she pushed me and encouraged me to start a relationship. Overbearing female president and poor campus heartthrob. Sister, go for it. But I had never been in a relationship, and I didn't want to be like Cui Qinghuan, being devastated by love, so I chose another way, a common way in the wealthy families. That's how I approached Shurjin. At first, to avoid hurting his self-esteem, I gave him financial support in the name of a scholarship. I also introduced him to another tutoring job, teaching Cui Qinghuan advanced mathematics for 100,000 yuan a month. Later, when Cui Qinghuan left, it became 300,000 yuan directly transferred to his bank card. When he received the card, his expression was very embarrassed. I thoughtfully changed the topic. Now, without the money that Shurjin thought was dirty, he wasn't used to it, so he thought of me. It was that simple. I smiled at the person in front of me. You don't miss me, you miss my money. Humiliation flashed in Shurjin's eyes. Cui Yuntan, why do you humiliate me like this? Back then, I didn't beg you, you came to me and wanted to be with me. I never asked you to do this. I raised an eyebrow. Do you need me to apologize? Shurjin was like a chicken whose neck was suddenly grabbed. His eyes widened, and his voice stopped abruptly. He stared at me blankly. After a long time, he gave a bitter laugh. Cui Yuntan, do you know, only I don't love your money. Before leaving, Shurjin threw a photo in front of me. In the photo, Joshi was walking into a club with a woman wearing a mink coat. I asked Secretary Wang to send a message to Shurjin, offering 5 million yuan to buy out this photo. Shurjin replied, why are you still cleaning up his mess? I flicked the ash off my cigarette, because I already knew what kind of person Joshi was. It was just a nurturing relationship. He served me well. I didn't care who he had been with before, but Shurjin seemingly couldn't accept it. He blocked Secretary Wang. The photo appeared on the internet the next day and soon spread like wildfire. Joshi had just become popular, as his fans said. He had touched the cakes of many potential rising stars. As soon as there was some negative news, a lot of online trolls swarmed in. When Joshi came back, I was making steak. The butter was sizzling. The sound of the range hood was almost inaudible. The Maillard reaction looked very tempting. The fragrant smell of the charred meat wafted into my nostrils. Joshi seemed to know he had made a mistake. He hugged me from behind, putting his head on my shoulder like a puppy. "Miss, have you seen that?" My breath caught. I actually suspected the authenticity of the photo, but Secretary Won checked and there was no sign of photo editing. She checked the source. Sure, Jean received it in an envelope one day, but she told me that I was his first benefactor. And his performance the first time was so bad that it made me feel at ease. Secretary Won also roughly investigated his past. The small city in the 18th tier county was too far away, and I didn't ask Secretary Won to fly there just for such a trivial matter. But after Joshi came to City A, he really only relied on me, so I actually didn't quite believe it. Maybe there was some misunderstanding until now. Joshi said guiltily, "Miss, I didn't mean to lie to you." So it was true. He really lied. I really wasn't his first benefactor. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself. "Let's have dinner first." I walked out of Joshi's embrace. He was stunned, his arms still in the air. "Miss, are you unhappy?" I shook my head. "No, I just feel a bit disgusted." Joshi's pupils suddenly contracted. He stared at me blankly. "Miss, what did you say?" I calmly cut the steak and said, "I've asked Secretary Won to deal with the news online." I took 2 bites of the steak. When I was about to take the 3rd bite, Joshi suddenly carried me over his shoulder. The 2 bites I had just eaten almost came out. "Miss, how can you think I'm dirty? How can you be like this?" There was a sobbing tone in his voice, but his actions were not gentle at all. He carried me all the way upstairs. "I'm different from others. I used to be very clean living. I never participated in those kinds of gatherings." Joshi," I shouted, interrupting him, "put me down." Joshi didn't move. "Don't make me say it again." Joshi sniffled, but still insisted on carrying me into the bedroom and putting me on the bed. Slap. I raised my hand and slapped him. After a moment of stunned silence, he came to rub against my hand. "Miss, does your hand hurt? If it hurts, I'll blow on it for you." There was a red mark on his face, which was highly praised by marketing accounts. His almond-shaped eyes were filled with teardrops. "I'm sure that the second I break up with him, he can find a new benefactor." "Miss, after you said that last time, I asked Secretary Wong what kind of medicine it was. I bought it. I've already taken 2 pills." As he said this, he took off his hoodie and threw it on the ground. I kicked him in the abs. "I want to have dinner first," I said, suppressing my anger. "I'm hungry." Joshi looked dejected. He tried to read my expression, and finally sat down on the edge of the bed in despair. "Okay, miss, I'll wait for you." I went downstairs alone and had dinner. Today's steak wasn't as delicious as yesterday's. It was also air transported from Australia early in the morning, but somehow, the taste just wasn't right. I remembered when Jean stood me up before. I wasn't angry because I was busy anyway, but today, I was angry. In the past, I indulged Jean again and again. Now, should I still indulge Joshi? Suddenly, I received messages from Cui Qinghuan. She sent 3 voice messages in a row, looking very urgent. "Mom arranged a blind date marriage for me. Sister, I don't want to marry someone I don't know. I don't want to live a life with only money but no love. I don't want to be a puppet of the wealthy family, losing myself and becoming a walking corpse." I didn't bother to reply. Voice messages came one after another, mostly 60-second long. I didn't listen to them. After finishing all my work in the study, it was almost 10 o'clock when I returned to the bedroom. On the bed in the bedroom, there was a big bulging lump, twitching. I took a look. Joshi was curled up into a ball, shaking. He turned his head to look at me, his face wrinkled like a steamed bun. His snot and tears were mixed together, but his good-looking features were still obvious. If this photo was taken, it would definitely slap those anti who said he had plastic surgery in the face. I stroked his fluffy head. Joshi took the opportunity to hug me tightly. I pushed his head away. He insisted on kissing me and trying to take off my pants. He was crying while doing this. Working extremely hard early the next morning, I was smoking a cigarette, looking at Joshi who had fallen asleep from crying. Outside the floor-to-ceiling window, there was a small patch of lush woods. The sun hadn't risen yet. The chirping of birds was so noisy that it gave me a headache. "Miss," I lowered my eyes to take a look. He wasn't awake, talking in his sleep. "Miss," I leaned closer curiously to listen. "Great, me." I got up to go for a morning run and didn't hear Joshi turn over and murmur again, "Miss, I love you." A month later, I had Just finished a meeting when Secretary Wang's internal call came in. Ms. Chui, Mr. Zhou, I frowned. Didn't you take back his elevator card? Secretary Wang's voice sounded on the verge of crying. I did, but Mr. Zhou seems to have made several copies. Tell the bodyguards to throw him out. He's already at your door. My head ached the next moment. Zhou walked in. If it weren't for his extremely bad expression, the way he walked those few steps was quite good looking. Clearly, he had dressed up, did his hair, and shaved his beard clean before he could speak. I tapped on the table. Are you not satisfied with the compensation? Zhou smiled. Miss, do you think of me as that kind of person? I didn't say anything. What exactly did I do wrong? What exactly? I didn't know either. One morning a month ago I came back from my morning run, when Zhou, who was still half asleep, came to kiss me. I mentioned breaking up. Zhou woke up immediately. Miss, did I not perform well last night? I shook my head. I'm just tired of it. Zhou froze on the spot. The hand that was playfully hooking my finger stopped moving. I left with a Secretary Wang will contact you and walked away later. Zhou came to see me several times. I knew he didn't want to break up. He asked me why that morning after the run I just suddenly didn't want to continue. Why did there have to be so many reasons? It wasn't even a real relationship. Even in a relationship, one could break up abruptly. I just wanted to change partners. I raised my eyes to look at the person in front of me. He was really good looking. After being groomed by a professional team, he looked even better. He looked like a mixed race. I didn't want things to end up ugly. Zhou, the reason I chose you back then was that you were more sensible than Shijin. After I said this, Zhou fell silent. You're a smart person. Take the money and leave. Let's part on good terms. What if I say no? Zhou suddenly walked closer to me. The familiar smell of body wash, sweet and refreshing. I resisted the urge to take a deep breath. The moment he was about to bite, I slapped him. Who allowed you to kiss me? Zhou, recognize your place. Zhou laughed. He laughed and kissed me again. Our lips and teeth intertwined, saliva stretching. After the kiss, he left without looking back. I was left sitting there, completely stunned. Cui Qinghuan brought her poor boyfriend to my villa, although he doesn't have a job now. He's really amazing. The current economic situation is bad, so it's not his fault. Then, they were affectionate and had on and off breakups in my villa. That's right, this guy still dared to be unfaithful. Cui Qinghuan punched and kicked him. The front passenger seat is for me. Can't you tell what your junior female classmate is up to? In the end, the two made up. I just sneered. A few days later they broke up again. Cui Qinghuan came to me with swollen eyes from crying. This time it's for real. I didn't believe her. Really, this time it's really true. I caught him kissing another woman. I didn't say anything. Sister, I'm going to go home and get married through an arranged marriage. I put down the documents in my hand and was a bit puzzled. The person you're arranged to marry might not only kiss other women but also sleep with them. Can you tolerate that? Cui Qinghuan nodded without hesitation. Yes, I don't even like him. Sister, you spilled your coffee. Sister, what's wrong with you? I came back to my senses. The coffee had spilled on the ugly teddy bear doll that night. I saw the scandal of Zhou and a top-tier female celebrity. The two were seen entering and leaving an apartment together. I turned off my phone screen. I didn't want to see it. I finally understood. Why could I tolerate Shijin being ambiguous with other women? But I couldn't stand Zhou having had a benefactor before. Why didn't I want to continue with Zhou? It was because I actually wanted to continue with him, but knowing this didn't help. He saw me as a benefactor, while I saw him as a partner. If this got out, wouldn't it be a laughing stock? I, Cui Yuntan, couldn't afford to lose that face. Cui Qinghuan went out to call our mom and came back looking unhappy. I'm really fed up. The person mom arranged for me to marry in the arranged marriage seems like a playboy. He dropped out of college halfway through and came back to China to pursue his dream in the entertainment industry. The Qin family doesn't support him. So he even found a rich woman to support him. Am I really going to marry him? Most of the Qin family's businesses are abroad, and the domestic part is not in City A. I hadn't heard much about the Qin family. I didn't know how my mom arranged this. Clearly, the previous arranged marriage partner wasn't from the Qin family. The next day I accompanied Cui Qinghuan to the blind date. In the high-end restaurant, I saw Zhou. He was standing next to a woman wearing a mink coat. My mom said this was Miss Qin and her younger brother, Qin Shi. My smile froze on my face. Cui Qinghuan's eyes lit up, and her face turned red. She tugged at my sleeve. Isn't this that popular guy? Humph, just as I thought. With a face like that, he must be a playboy. Sister, where are you going? I turned around and left. I'm going to smoke a cigarette. When I came back, Cui Qinghuan and Qin Shi were chatting happily. My mom and Miss Qin had already left. Chui Qinghuan was very happy. Sister, Qin Shi is nice, she said to Qin Shi. This is my sister, you can call her sister too from now on. Qin Shi smiled distantly and politely called out, sister. My heart skipped a beat, it felt strange. I'm going to the restroom. Through the mirror in the restroom, I saw a familiar figure. Qin Shi walked over casually. He was wearing an off-white sweater today, dressed very casually. The sapphire stud in his earlobe was shining. He looked like a typical old money type, that is, spending a lot of money. To pretend to be a laid-back person. Sister, long time no see. I'm going to be your brother-in-law. Are you happy? I didn't want to answer. As we passed by each other, Qin Shi grabbed my wrist. Sister, why don't you answer? I suppressed my anger and said, what do you want me to answer? Qin Shi chuckled. He suddenly changed the topic. So, did I act well before? The obedient little lover, I sneered. Not bad. Is it because I acted too well that you thought you could just abandon me? His long and narrow eyes narrowed, and his hand stroked my wrist. The familiar touch made my heart flutter. Just when I was about to lose control, he took a step back, creating a distance between us. Sister, remember to call me brother-in-law from now on. The incense in the restroom made my head feel a bit dizzy. I glanced at Qin Shi and said, no need to wait, I can call you now, brother-in-law. Qin Shi's face was calm but with a hint of gloom, his jawline tightly clenched. The moment I turned to leave, I was pulled into his arms. Qin Shi was nibbling on my neck, whining, as if I care about you, brother-in-law, you're biting me too hard. Qin Shi froze. After a moment, he bit even harder. I pushed him hard. Qin Shi pinched my waist and said, don't think I can't bear to part with you. I just want to take revenge on you. Do you think I still like you? My phone fell out of my pocket just then. Chui Qinghuan sent me a voice message. Sister, I won't disturb you and brother-in-law. I'm leaving now. Brother-in-law said he wants to chase you and asked me to keep it a secret. Don't tell him I told you. Qin Shi, who was pressing on me, stiffened. An embarrassed look flashed across his face. My phone rang. It was the maid from home, that handmade teddy bear of yours. When I washed it in the washing machine, something fell out of it. Qin Shi reached for my phone. Don't listen. It's a diamond ring and a pink letter, like a love letter. Should I throw them away for you? I glanced at Qin Shi. His face turned bright red. After a moment, he gave up and kissed me, but he really had a good-looking face. I hung up the phone and looked at Qin Shi. He puffed out his cheeks, looking a bit unhappy. You already know, I originally wanted you to experience chasing me to win me back. That was definitely impossible. I had my reputation to uphold. I couldn't afford to lose that face. Qin Shi seemed to see what I was thinking and was a bit annoyed. Sister, I'm going to punish you. I nodded agreeably. Okay, I thought he wouldn't dare to do anything. Qin Shi smiled meaningfully. Sister, I have a suite on the 38th floor here, and then I didn't see the sun for 3 days. The end.